Have you ever watched something that completely rewired your brain chemistry?
A procedural network drama might not be your usual pick, but it's ours.
This is The Buddie System, a 911 deep dive podcast hosted by three friends who have DM'd each other enough character dissertations to earn a PhD in media literacy.
I'm Han, coming to you straight from the characters' heads.
I'm Sil, bringing you to the observation deck.
And I'm Rachel, connecting the dots with my red string.
With our powers combined,
No stone is left unturned.
And no buddy is left behind.
This episode brought to you by Zero Personal Space. Welcome to Dispatch. What's on call this week?
this week we're discussing Season 2, Episode 4, Stuck, written by John J. Gray and directed by Sarah Boyd. It originally aired on Monday, October 8th, 2018.
So we have about 4 major calls of the week. The first is the American Ninja Security Guard, where a nighttime security guard gets stuck between 2 buildings trying to chase down ninja graffiti artists. His words, not ours. Then the next one is the Tipsy Tailpipers, where on a flirty and probably drunken dare, a woman gets her head stuck in an oversized tailpipe of a truck. The next one is No Cash for You. So
I really gotta start reading these before we record.
I'm trying to do something funny with them. Love a good Seinfeld reference. No Cash for You. Where a man gets stuck in the back of an ATM machine and withholds customers' withdrawals until he can be rescued. The last one is what I called Chutes and Escalators. A romantic proposal gets ruined when a man falls through the floor paneling and gets stuck in the inner gears of an escalator.
Shoots an escalator. Oh my god.
That's a delayed.
That man is dead.
I was trying not to laugh.
Gotta bring a little levity in it. That is the saddest call of the episode.
Shoots and
I'm sure he would have
ladders.
enjoyed a lot of levity so that he wouldn't have fallen into those gears.
Yes, exactly. Or maybe they should have just been put together properly and he was just the unlucky person to fall through, even though the mall had probably been open for so long. But anyways.
All right.
Plot holes aside.
So, what did we think about our rewatch of this episode?
I miss Christopher. Christopher, come back, baby boy.
Come home.
Come home, child.
He's not a baby anymore.
No.
Yeah,
I love these episodes, these early episodes with Christopher when he's so young. I mean, he's so adorable.
Yeah.
But like, it's so sweet. This episode really had a lot going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of an interesting change of pace after the basically 3-part opener from the earthquake.
Yeah.
It's like, I almost forgot about it for a minute, but
yeah,
we were talking about that for a while. So it's
this whole season so far, basically.
Yeah. What is it? Like a 6th of the season?
A 6th.
A whole 6th? Because it's 18 episodes.
Yeah.
6 times 18.
Yeah,
I can do math.
that's how math works. Good job.
Thank you. I wasn't even struck by lightning either.
Jesus.
Go me. That the bar
Wow.
is really low.
Wow.
Anyway, so I think this is a lot of return to form. So essentially, I mean, we kind of got this a little bit in the first episode. So this is basically like the first or second, like typical episode of the season, because 2 and 3 were so earthquake heavy. So we're going back to like, we have the 4 calls, which is, I think, like the average.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the calls are reflecting the inner turmoil of all of the characters and everything like that, which is kind of nice. But this is a good episode. I think it sets up a lot of stuff for the rest of the season as well.
For sure.
Like you said, like the episode is, there was a lot going on, especially while note taking. I was just not all over the place. Just there was just a lot going on, lots of things to consider. Lots of character reveals, personality reveals, especially Eddie's.
Yes. Oh, I can't wait to talk about that.
Yeah. I think we all can't wait to talk about Eddie, as always.
Finally!
Yeah. I just know that this is the episode where I'm just like, yeah, I have a feeling I'm going to relate to you soon. Pretty fast, pretty quick. I don't know why. This is where I already claimed him, but I'm going to claim him again.
The family dynamics.
Oh, yeah.
The Catholicism.
Oh, God.
It's all ringing pretty true, huh? We don't have to get into that. But
nope. No. That is another point to talk about in a future episode, or we already probably talked about it in our season 7 wrap. So,
a bit,
exactly.
Yeah, a little bit.
Hopefully, we'll get some more into that upcoming season 8. We'll see.
I love this episode. It was not a hardship to watch it 6 times.
6 times?
I wish I could. I wish I had the time
scrubbed through a lot the last 2 times,
okay.
But yeah. Yeah. When I say scrubbed through, I mean that I skipped everything except the Buck and Eddie parts.
That's kind of what
I see you. I know what you are.
Well, I mean, to be fair, in this episode, it was just because it was so easy for me to get a total picture and hold on everyone else, because everyone else's everything was very straightforward, and like we're still doing a lot of character building for Eddie, which I love, but like it's a lot, right? Like every episode where he has a main,
he is like kind of the main character right now.
Yeah, he's the it girl.
low key dreading the Shannon of it all. Not because of Shannon, just because that's going to be another layer. And we're going to have lots to talk about. Lots to talk about.
Yeah. I think Eddie is one of the most layered characters. Like the most rich characters I've seen.
He's an onion.
He is an onion. Yeah. He's one of the most like layered and like rich characters I've seen in a lot of media lately. This is why we love him. We'll get into some of that later.
Good episode. Eddie. Buck, yay.
What was it during our season wrap? Sil was like,
no Eddie, boo.
Every episode of season 2, Eddie, yay.
Eddie, yay. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, there's also a lot of Buck in this episode, and a lot of reading into things, maybe a little too much, that we'll talk about later. But I think this was probably the episode that I started to really like his character. Because I started in season 2. So this was my 4th episode with him, right? Because like there's not a lot of personality super happening in episodes like 2 and 3.
Yeah, you get like little glimpses of it.
So I get like him being like emotional, peacocking, and then like, okay, actually we can be bros, and then disaster, and then this. So this was the first episode that I was like, you seem kind of broken.
I like it.
You seem kind of broken, but you want everyone to think that you're happy. So I shall call him Squishy, and you shall be mine.
Wait, did you even like understand? Did you? Because I don't remember. Did you like get the full picture of Abby when you were first watching this, or no?
Bro, no. Do you remember we were watching the train crash episode?
You're like, who's this?
and when I didn't even get it, I guess because I missed where Buck says Abby, like when he's talking to her, if he says Abby. So like in the plane when Eddie's like, it's Abby, like in his disgusted voice, I was like, oh, that was Abby. So it's like, yes.
So essentially you were in the same kind of position as Eddie, where you also thought that Buck had an invisible girlfriend.
Yes.
Oh.
Like I got the general context of like this person said that like they would eventually be coming back and just left him hanging. So yeah. But anyway, we don't need to talk anymore this episode about
Abby.
my Abby or my out of order viewing. Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna have to mention her a little bit, but
we are going to have to
in passing. We don't have to focus on her as much as in season 1.
Never again.
Oh, she coming back. Don't worry.
Briefly. I have a couple things for deep dive. Would y'all like to hear them?
Yeah, let's fucking go.
That's all you. Let's go.
Okay, cool.
We're gonna need the jaws of life over here.
Okay, the first one is an article from TV Line. Let me see the date on here. It's from, it's the day that this aired. So October 8th, 2018. And the headline is 911's Oliver Stark breaks down Buck's season 2 challenges, including how he'll eventually get over Abby. So I thought that was kind of an interesting article to have out this week on the episode where everyone is feeling stuck in some way. And there are, so he's kind of talking about Buck's arc for the season so far. And I have a couple quotes. They're a little longer, so I'll try to paraphrase. But Oliver Stark said he's not ready to move on from Abby. But as we'll see over the next few episodes, people in his life start telling him it might be time to sever ties. And he goes on to say that Buck is a very romantic person, and he's really come to love the feeling of being in love. He's not going to get over this quickly, and whatever happens with the Abby relationship, it will have a lasting impression on who he is. And I loved that because, like, that's kind of what we got from Buck, like, very early on in season 1, where, like, he's just looking for connection, and he is a very romantic person. So I like that little bit of validation. Thank you. And then he also said that he doesn't see Buck slipping back into his old ways, like his Buck 1.0 ways. In fact, Oliver said that he is looking forward to exploring this new mature side of him. And he's starting to put people in his life before himself. He always did that on the job, but in his personal life, there's been a bit of a selfish streak.
What personal life?
He's only had himself in his personal life, so of course, like, he's gonna be the only one.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that kind of makes sense. And then I loved this next little bit from the article. I'm almost done with it, I promise. The article said, another person Buck is letting into his life is Eddie. Stark thinks that it was a smart move for the writers to snuff out Buck and Eddie's rivalry in the premiere. As firefighters, they have to trust each other, he says. They need to have each other's back so they'll both feel safe. And he didn't think that Buck realized how much he needed someone to go on these crazy little escapades with. So that was really interesting, following that he's adding people into his personal life. He's opening up. What have we been saying all of season 1? He has not opened up. And now he's able to with new character, Eddie. So very interesting stuff there. Thoughts, comments, reactions. Excellent.
Anything I have to say will be going into a different section.
Okay, perfect. So we will keep that in mind.
I mean, I haven't read like older or watched older interviews much with Oliver, but normally no notes.
Yeah, there's something about like the way that he speaks about Buck and how he interprets Buck's character.
Mm-hmm.
Just feels very, I mean, I guess it's just very in tune with what our interpretations are.
Yeah.
So it's always nice as a viewer to see that the actor who's playing that character and interpreting that character first is playing to the stuff that we're catching up on.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was a weird way of saying it.
Well, it's also good to feel validated when, you know, we catch on to things and then they kind of confirm that, yeah, you're going in that right direction, because we've had experiences where we catch on to things and we've been invalidated. So, I mean...
War flashbacks.
Yeah.
Fandom war flashbacks.
The show that must not be named.
Yeah, mystery.
You know
no one's
who you
going to know
are.
what we're talking about. But yeah, I think it's really great. And I think that's one of the reasons why we end up loving his character so much is just because, like, not to say that the writing on the show isn't consistent, but you can really tell when an actor really gets and cares about their character, because they're putting a lot of things that might not even be verbal into the performance that, you know, if you're someone who's interpreting it the same way that the actor is, and if you're interpreting it correctly in the way that they're delivering it in the lines, you know, then it's this nice little feedback loop that just, I don't know. It
shows like we're all kind of on a similar plane of thought. And on the actor's side, it shows so much intentionality. And I think we always appreciate that when someone just like puts that extra thought in there. It's just like, and then it pays off because we're picking up on it. So it's like, I hope it's encouraging to the actors as well, because it's encouraging for us to see it and read into it. Yeah. Love that. Can't wait to see more. Like I like trying to find some of these older articles. So I'll always share those, because I think it's really interesting, especially to see like the trajectory through the years. Okay. So I want to go into the next one. And Sil, if I could have you confirm as the only Spanish speaker between all of us, the song that plays in the opening, the morning montage with Eddie and Chris, the Milagro by Gloria Estefan, and because I wanted to know a little bit of the lyrics, because I mean I've heard the song before, but I haven't really like looked into it. So the title translates to miracle, right? And I just pulled like a couple of the translated lines. So a couple of them are saying like, children are the blessing, the miracle of our love. They teach us how to love, how to open our heart. So I thought that was a really fantastic choice to put in the opening, where it's Eddie and his son, and basically that is like exemplifying what Chris means to Eddie in a very like short form way.
Cute.
Because we can tell already, like, he loves his kid so much. And I think I also thought it was interesting because I think miracle comes up a couple times. We'll talk about it with Chimney later. So I thought that was an interesting tie-in there. Just something to point out. And okay, are we ready for some red string time?
Always.
Yep.
I'll try to be brief. Again, this was me at like 4 a.m. I had a little brain blast. I was like, whoa, wait a second. This means this. Da, 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 da. So if I'm grasping at straws, please let me know. But
I don't know if that was at me.
No,
I'm kidding.
No, this is at me. Like, let me know if I'm totally like, okay, sure. But since we've watched the whole show again, and this is our rewatch, or if I'm getting too spoilery in here, let me know. I thought the escalator proposal, like the not disaster. We had a disaster. That was the earthquake. The accident? Tragedy? I don't know. The call with the escalator proposal, it felt very Eddie and Shannon coded to me. And Shannon, we haven't seen in the season yet, but going back to it, wait, I like dove into this, okay? So like on the surface, it's this guy going to propose to his girlfriend, right?
Right.
Doesn't seem that similar. But it's a big life-changing decision followed immediately by tragedy, where the guy, his name is Daniel, he mentioned buying his girlfriend an expensive necklace that she had pawned to donate to an animal shelter. So he's trying not to repeat the same mistakes because he's not buying a ring. He just wants the box for the ring, right? So that kind of is he bought the necklace just a few months after they met. So that was kind of indicative of making a big commitment maybe before they're ready. And the ring that he's chosen is a little ring pop, which kind of correlates to like childhood nostalgia because it's a piece of candy. So Eddie and Shannon being very young and starting their life, again, maybe before necessarily they're ready. But also when Daniel goes to the counter, when we first see Daniel at the counter, the jewelry store associate says, "Oh, so you're drawn to the more traditional classic settings." And he only wants the box. So to me, he only wants the outside, the appearance, the facsimile of normal, which also can be like heteronormativity, right? But like it's just the box, it's just the outside, and then on the inside is something that, okay, like it's candy, it's a little more like ephemeral, like it doesn't last as well,
right?
Just like that whole. I tell me if I'm like totally off base, but I feel
I can see where you're going with it.
Yeah, I do too. I think that's smart.
I feel like it's kind of something like we already saw some foreshadowing about like another person's leg being crushed in the second episode. So like, which we said is foreshadowing for Buck. So it's not like out of the realm of possibility, but it's just like, again, brain blasting at 4 a.m. I just felt like it was a lot of things lining up. And also like the introduction shot to Daniel. He's an attractive man with big brown doe eyes, right? And then his would-be fiance, like, and who else were we introduced to in just like this is an attractive person fashion? And his girlfriend, who would be his fiance, is also brown hair. She's in this very like flowy floral shirt, which we know is kind of Shannon's style and similar, if not necessarily in color, but similar in style to the shirt that she wears at the end of the season when bad things happen. So it's just kind of like all of these. I don't know. It's like too many coincidences for me. And I'm like, wait a second.
No, and I always veer on the side of them doing intentional things, even when it seems like crazy, because they are crazy.
A little bit. And I was like, am I crazy for reading into this? But it was just like, and you know, when we see at the very end, so this is what kind of tied it all together for me. Like, Daniel proposes, like decides to make this commitment essentially again, right? Because his girlfriend had like pawned off the commitment of the expensive necklace early on. So essentially that's like running away from that kind of commitment. Are we getting it? And then like deciding to try again pretty much. And then immediately, boom, tragedy, accident, which to me was similar to Eddie trying to establish, like Eddie basically like was trying to propose to Shannon again and she turned it down, and then boom, tragic accident. Like just as they were kind of like Chimney says, just as they were about to start like their lives, they had so much to live for and cut short. And all of that stuff with like the ring in the box and just being like the outside, and it looks traditional, it looks classic. Yeah. But you open it up and it's not what it appears. Which like
kind of seems like a reverse mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then also you had his partner Ariel, the girlfriend, have to be held back by the 118 and watch from the sidelines. And then at the very end, and I didn't go back and double check this, but at the very end when Daniel has passed away and his girlfriend goes over to him, there's like this aerial shot of him on the gurney. And I'm pretty sure there is an aerial shot, like her name is Ariel, but like a bird's eye view shot very similar to that. In the episode where that happens.
Yeah, I can visualize it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's episode 217. So we'll have to I will check back on that, but I just
Put a pin in
wanted
this.
to
Bookmark this.
bookmark it. I don't know if anyone's else picked up on that, but I was like, maybe.
No, but the aerial shot does. I'm pretty sure it was just very similar. So like it probably did click in my head. It just obviously I didn't have my 4 a.m. brain blast.
No, it's okay. I was admittedly like I thought I like kind of glommed onto the idea of the box being this appearance facsimile of like heteronormativity, and then I was like, oh, wait. So then it all just kind of like crumbled from like oh, the dice fell.
Oh my gosh.
From or the chips fell from there. And it's not a perfect mirror, but it was just like a bunch of things kind of lining up in a way that like it could be interpreted like that. So that's it. Thank you for letting me share. I was very excited about
That's interesting. Yeah.
I hope everyone enjoyed Rachel's TED Talk.
This is the kind of red string stuff that I've been waiting to do. So, anyways, we can move on now.
Yeah, I guess so. Let's talk about our couple themes of the episode. As always, the most obvious one is the title of the episode, Stuck. They only say it, you know what? We should have done a counter on how many times they say stuck in this episode, because like it was a lot. It was a lot.
Wait, we should take a little like guess, and then I'll probably watch it again,
like
and we
a
can
jar
insert.
of candy.
Yeah. How many times do you think they said stuck?
Yeah.
I don't know.
But I also related stuck with being stagnant, and like they're kind of related and similar, but like two different things. So like stuck is like being unable to move, right?
Yeah.
And stagnant is like going stale, like nothing is changing, like
it's like everything else moving around you.
Yes,
I think Chimney
you're staying
uses
the
that.
same. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then I have versus, or the dichotomy of breaking free and growing, which are related but also different.
And it's an interesting thing because we had Trapped from last season, and I've been trying to figure out a way to verbalize like how they're similar but different, like related but different, because I think Stuck is such a ubiquitous theme throughout season 2. And I feel like being trapped is more like something happening to you, like you end up being trapped, like something traps you. Whereas getting stuck is almost like you have more autonomy over that kind of. Is that like a weird delineation to make?
No, because like I feel like our characters, especially in this episode, like they are voluntarily in a stasis. Like they're not. I mean, some try to move forward and some don't. So that's where you can see that there is autonomy. There is autonomy that can be achieved, but some do not move forward.
Like for example, in the Trapped episode, we had the elevator falling. And like that wasn't really of anyone's doing except negligence of, the building people. But getting stuck, it's like you're actively, and I think this is kind of going to go into one of our other themes, you're more actively making a choice to either do something or not. So, but that's still a choice. And even at the beginning with the monologue about, the Oxford Dictionary defines rut as a habit or pattern of behavior. And to me, that has, like choice woven into it, essentially. Like you can choose to do nothing, but that is inherently a choice.
A choice, yeah.
Like you have to be freed from being trapped, but you have to get yourself unstuck. Yeah. I don't know. I just kept thinking that it was like an important distinction to make between the two because it's like so similar and we'll see stuck a lot in this season. So also making decisions or having choices is a big thing as well. Like you can be stuck between options, but you can also choose to take a risk or not take a risk, you know. Weighing your options, like the girl who stuck her head in the tailpipe, they said she did it on her own free will. And it was on a dare, but to accept that dare is like your own free will. So I really love whenever free will is brought up as a theme as well. And I think this one is just like free will light. Like you can make choices. It's in your hands. You wonder why I like that other show. It's all about free will. Like
supposedly,
so much
allegedly.
PTSD.
Oh God, we're not getting into that now. I could go on another like hour and a half long tangent about that. So, but like the idea of free will, like choosing which path to take. Like there are two paths before you. Which one do you go down? Sometimes they'll lead you to the same place. Sometimes they'll lead you to completely different ones. And like the choice is yours.
Right.
Will you choose poorly or will you choose wisely?
And I think, again, it's a situation where you can also choose to do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And that will lead to you being stuck.
Yeah.
And we see that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I also think this was my light bulb moment on, I don't know, watch 3 or 4, was that self-actualization is a theme. And it's not like, you know, self-actualization is like a process of trying to become like the best you or like reach your potential, whatever. So like it's a process. Self-actualized is like when you get there. So I think all of these characters, with the exception of one, are really striving, you know what I mean, to or thinking or ruminating on this kind of theme of like, am I doing like the most that I can, like to the best of my abilities? Am I being like the best version of me?
Right.
That kind of thing.
Which also goes into growth, like self-growth. I mean, you work on self-growth until you become self-actualized. And that's like the entire purpose of it. And kind of similarly, or I feel like a facet of self-actualization can be independence as well. Like knowing that you can kind of stand on your own 2 feet, but also, as we see so often in this show as well, the concept of support systems is also very important. And we'll see this kind of harkens back to me a lot like Let Go in episode 2 of season 1. I feel like that was one of the most pivotal, like thematic episodes, because there was so much emphasis on, you know, being able to lean on someone else or rely on someone else. Like support systems are so important because because you have to acknowledge when you can't do something on your own, because then that's just being stuck in your stubbornness, right?
Yeah.
That like, no, I can do it. I can do it all by myself, which I think was a lot of Abby's issue in season 1 as well. But the kind of like handshaking in tandem nature of independence, but still having a support system for when you understand and acknowledge that you can't be as independent as you may want to, or that it's okay to rely or to lean on someone else when you can't get yourself all the way there.
So our last theme, I think, is trying to find your purpose or looking for meaning in your life, which I think is, you know, something that every single person can relate to who maybe isn't a sociopath.
Yeah, hopefully.
But yeah, we really see that with we see that with all of these characters. Like again, the one exception is like they already have it. But it's just trying to find, like, it could be anything from like trying to find like your calling in life, or trying to like find like what the meaning of life is, or like ruminating on why something happened to you and not to someone else. You know, just philosophical things.
Yeah. I feel like there is kind of
Just existential dread things.
my favorite. I love existential things. What is the meaning of life? What is my purpose here? Free will, it doesn't exist. This
Oh my God.
goes into each other. Welcome to Rachel's head. And also in kind of like finding purpose and meaning, I feel like there's also a little bit of, you know, like having certain expectations, but also like acknowledging that those expectations of what your life can look like and what the true meaning of your life can be, those can change. Because I think we see that a few times as well. So just kind of like adapting with life a little bit, which actually it makes sense, because otherwise if you're just like super regimented and like inadaptable, non-adaptable, if you're not adapting,
Immovable.
Immovable. I like it. If you're immovable, then you're not growing, and sometimes the way to grow is to change your expectations. And just kind of like be a little more like, not go with the flow, but like fluid with that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as you grow and change, what you want and what you value can change too. So
Yes.
if you were like, well, I set a goal for myself, or I wanted to do this thing, but now I'm different, or things have changed, but I'm still gonna like hold on to this thing, you know, that could end not great.
Yeah. It's like when the choices that you make and the paths that you choose to go on can lead you in a different direction that you originally thought. Like you thought it was going to get you to point A, but it really got you to point C. And so you have to kind of like reassess and kind of figure out from there. It may not be any better or worse from where you originally thought you were going to end up, but like you're here now. You might as well just go with it and see if you can continue self-actualization.
Yeah.
Ugh, I love existential stuff.
Who's cooking? Shall we talk about some characters?
Yes, I think we shall. We've got a lot to talk about. There's a lot going on with so many of our characters this week.
There's a little going on with some of them. And then
Yes.
a lot going on with a couple of them. I guess we'll start with Maddie. And we get to see her at her, presumably, more than second. I'm assuming this is like a week later, at least.
I hope so.
From her disastrous first day. But it's kind of like night and day, like seeing how confident that she is in this job now. And we see that like on both calls, where they're both kind of really screwy at the beginning.
Yeah.
But she's really patient with people. Like she isn't like, this is, you know, not like a couple other
we'll see.
call center people we could mention.
Actually, I think we see her in the next episode. One of them.
Do we? Oh,
Gloria.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. But she stays on to like make sure that like nothing is actually happening. But, you know, she is trying to be like firm with it. But she's, you know, she's really like breaking free out of like this stagnant place that she's been in.
Yeah. And I think there's a difference here between her feeling like stagnant and becoming comfortable in this new life that she's created for herself, right? Like there's this emphasis on kind of similarly between feeling trapped and getting stuck, being stuck and being comfortable, are another kind of like versus each other where it can coincide, but it doesn't have to be. Does this make sense?
I think you lost me on that one.
Like, just because she's feeling more comfortable doesn't mean that she's becoming stuck in this.
Oh, no, I wasn't saying that she was.
No. I'm just saying, like,
Okay.
there's a difference because I'm just going back to the opening monologue where she says there's some comfort to be taken in the idea of rut as a long, deep track that is made by the repeated passage of the wheels of vehicles. So there's some comfort to be taken in that definition. When you find yourself stuck in a rut, you can be sure others have been there before you. But it's like, I think in this case, it's more of like developing routine and feeling comfortable in where you are, which is not a bad thing. Like, some people could think of it as stuck, but like in this case, I don't think so.
No, she's making a new normal for herself. Like,
Yeah.
she's breaking free out of a very, like, traumatic, bad situation and, like, taking charge of her life, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of running, she's, like, building a life for herself. So she's breaking free from where she was. Yes.
Sorry,
so I would
every time you
consider
say
where
breaking
she
free.
was stuck, like, where she was before we met her, she was stuck. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're seeing her in the process of breaking free from that.
Yeah, it's like she's making the active choice to stay where she is,
Mhm.
as opposed to the kind of irony of being stuck while she was on the run. So it like had the appearance of like, no, she was moving towards something, but it was
No, she
really
was just
her
running
moving
away.
away. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is like a sense of being stuck as well.
Yeah, and I think we definitely see her growing and like reclaiming her independence. So like
Yeah.
she had this short time with her brother to like you know kind of acclimate and feel comfortable and safe again, and now that she has that, she's like, okay, I need to like reestablish myself on my own. And you know, that isn't just her like having a job, it's her having her own place and like being in control of all of the everything in her life, because she hasn't been able to do that for a very long time.
Yeah, but even the reason why she's able to kind of like step out on her own like this is because she had Buck reestablished as she and Buck reestablished this support system for each other. So without that, she would still be kind of like hanging off the edge. Yeah, just kind of like in that stasis that we were talking about. But because she now feels supported, and we can imagine she hasn't felt supported in an immensely long time, like this gives her the courage to even go out and really start life anew. And it's because she has Buck that she can fall back on. So it's that like independence with that support system as the buoy or the sail. Parachute? Choose metaphor of choice. choose your metaphor path.
I think it's just great to see some more just interactions with her and Buck, and to see like their dynamic and how it's very easy for them to talk to each other, and they really listen to each other. Yeah.
It's really quite lovely to see this sibling dynamic that we don't really get to see anywhere else on the show so much. It's just like a different familial facet. Yeah, they just like they work so well together, and there's already
they're the only adult siblings. Yeah.
And they just you can see like they fall back into what feels comfortable for them in their relationship, but like that's a good thing. That's a supportive thing. And it's really cute. I love it.
Very cute.
Go Maddie. She deserves good things. And good things will come.
Oh, yes. Down the chimney.
Oh my God.
Good job.
Wow.
Thank you.
That was really worthy
yes.
of Rachel's.
My
Wow.
influence
The
is growing.
vibes that I'm feeding off of right now.
Woohoo!
Wow.
So Miss Athena in this episode is our self-actualization representation. She is fully self-actualized, which like I feel like we could have said at any point after the end of the last season. You know, once she went through her whole journey. I think that was kind of what we said like in the season 1 wrap.
I think we did say that too. Like, I'm pretty sure one of us did say, I don't remember if it was you or me or Sil, but like that her accepting the divorce, or like asking for the divorce in the first place and accepting that this is like their new life now was that last final step in her self-actualization. And we see it come to fruition.
Yeah. So like she gets this opportunity through work that she tried to get for years and was looked over because a woman. And her boss used to not be a woman, used to be, you know, a misogynist. So she stopped applying for this promotion, and now her boss is like, you're amazing, because she is, and is like, I'd love for you to have this promotion in a couple like next week or like in 2 weeks, like very
it's
very
a really
quickly,
quick
right?
turnaround. And
and she's like, let me sit and think about it. And she does not seem excited about it, which you would think, like based on her having previously really gunned for it. But she has a couple key conversations.
Yeah.
But overall, most people are just assuming that she's going to take this promotion because she used to really want it. Or just because it's a promotion and she deserves it.
And she's so good at her job. So, like, why wouldn't she take it? Because then she can be good at her job
more,
but at a higher level, sort of thing, which I think is like societally.
Yeah.
Okay. That sounded weird coming out of my mouth. As a society that is very heavily encouraged, and it's like, you know, the idea of the societal pressures of climbing up the corporate ladder or whatever, like the hierarchy. I'm having trouble today. Like the hierarchy structure of your job, just like always striving for that next step and everything like that. And, you know, Athena even said like that is what she used to want. Like fighting for that recognition. And it's always kind of a slog, you know, just like she applied for that same position like 4 times and she was passed over 4 times. It's going to kind of make you reconsider things, right? Even a little subconsciously, like, I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah. Well, like at the time, I'm sure. But, you know, as she says when she's talking to Michael about it, she's like, you know, I've never been happier, like basically more well-adjusted, really comfortable in my own skin. So she's like very confident in who she is and what she does. And I don't think she flat out says she does not feel a need to do what she used to want to do. Like she's very satisfied with her life. She loves her family. She loves her job. She loves being out there with the people, helping people. And then, you know, when you do go higher up in the ranks, there's more paperwork, there's less time in the field, there's more responsibility.
You're overseeing
other
more
officers. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
As opposed to like doing it yourself.
Basically, everyone, her kids and Michael, everyone assumes that she's going to take this promotion, and she's talking about Bobby with it, and they're in bed. Very cute. Very cutesy. Very demure.
That was not demure or cutesy.
It became not demure.
It started out cutesy.
Yeah. Bobby was very mindful, though.
He was very mindful. He was straight up just like, well, you're not taking the job. Because, like, they get each other. And he's like, you're just like me. Like, you know, he wants to be out there. with his team helping people, and she wants to be like, they're the same. So he totally gets why she doesn't want to do it and really validates her in that decision that she had already made her mind up for. But she was like, well, everyone keeps telling me, like assuming that I'm going to do it.
Yeah, it's so lovely that like we get to see how much they see eye to eye, but to use the line that we always go back to, like he really sees her, right? In a way that no one else really does. And even Michael, who is like her closest person besides Bobby and was for so long, he was kind of encouraging her to, like, you know, take a risk. The next place might be better. So that's also something. Yeah. It's like that is the tough part of making the choices to either go forward and grow, you could say, or to stay in the same place, because you are making a risk. You don't know if the next place will be better, and you kind of have to weigh that very, very carefully. And it was also interesting too, like you kind of, I don't know, I felt like I kind of identified with this a little bit when given an option, like Athena, when given the option of the promotion, like you said, she wasn't excited about it. She was just kind of like, well, first of all, she was taken aback, which is fair because that did come out of nowhere. So it's like, oh, wait, huh? I did not think that's what we were going to be talking about. But the lack of like, yeah, this is an opportunity that I really want to take now. I feel like a lot of times, at least for me, like you kind of know what choice you're going to make, even though like Athena, you kind of hem and haw over the what ifs, essentially. Yeah. Like, what if I did this? Just like, I feel like she really weighed like all of the pros and cons, even though she already kind of had made up her mind. But because everybody else around her was saying like, well, yeah, why wouldn't you take it? The Harry and May were like so supportive of her, which was really sweet. But she, you know, she knew what she was going to do.
Yeah, I think she had like a like her gut reaction, but because Athena is Athena, she, you know, is going to list out things just to like double check that, you know, she's correct in making that decision.
Yeah. That's exactly why I sort her the way that I do.
So I think this is a great example of our themes of like big life choices. And it's one of those ones where it's kind of flipped on its head because she is staying in the same position, but she is not stuck. She is very much exactly where she wants to be, in a place where she like has found her purpose and she feels that it's very meaningful.
Yeah.
She has independence. She has her support system. Like she has all of the good parts of all of these themes. She is all of those things. So why would she want to change that?
She's got the Maslow's hierarchy of needs covered.
She does.
Yeah, I think she's also like comfortable in where she is. Like, you know, some of this I can relate to because I've been in that kind of position where something like promotion was kind of like thrust into my face, and
that's one way to put it.
PTSD. Oh, no. Anyway, but yeah, you know, promotion was thrusted into my face 2 times. And the thing is, like, I kind of went with like the society. Well, first of all, I mean, financials. There were things that I had to consider, financials normally.
Of course, that plays a big part.
And also, I'm like, oh, the experience. This bright-eyed girl, ambitious. I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? Now I'm in a position where I'm like, I feel like I will definitely think it over a lot more than, again, bright-eyed, ambitious past me, who was like, yeah, I want to experience all the things and maybe I'll, I don't know, be more accomplished or something. But now I'm like, I'm comfortable. I mean, again, yeah, I mean, if you're comfortable in a position in your position in life, like why would you want to change that? I mean, yeah, it could be for the better, it could be, but it also could be for the worse. And at the end of the day, I think Athena made the decision that
worked for her.
That works for her, yeah.
Yeah. And like Athena, you and she had to go through and experience things, and like you had this vision for like your, like what you wanted to do, like your path, right? But like with the experiences that you or she had gone through, like there's adaptation that needs to happen there. So like Athena said, like she, when she was younger, like in her 20s, it was all about climbing the ladder. She was fighting, and she had dreams and goals and visions of success, but they've since changed because now what she values is the success that she has with her family and her children, and being a person that others can rely on. So like being a support system for others is something that she's come to really value as well. And she wouldn't necessarily be that kind of same support system if she were to go on this like different venture sort of thing. So it's like, it's changing of values, but adapting to those changing. It's not like changing the goal. It's not like moving the goalposts per se, where it's like something that you perpetually can't reach, but it's moving them around. It's valuing things at different levels, so other things take priority. Which priorities was another theme that we had in like episodes 2 and 3, right? Mostly 2.
Think so. Yeah.
I can always circle it back around. So yeah. So it's lovely that like she's comfortable, but she's not unhappy. And I think that's an important point to make about being comfortable. Like as long, what is it that Bobby says? It's okay to feel satisfied and that it's enough, as long as it feels like it's enough.
Yeah. Well, I feel like the word comfortable sometimes gets misused.
It gets a negative connotation sometimes.
Like or you could say like too comfortable. Like there has to be like something to denote that it's not, because like regular comfortable,
that it's not like productive or
like if you're happy and comfortable,
or beneficial to you.
Yeah.
But that goes into the same thing where it's like, well, something else could be better. It could also be worse. Right?
Yep.
So it's like, you know, so and it's like, you know, you just have to really weigh those and weigh that risk. And sometimes it's okay to, I'm not a poker player, but like, isn't it okay to like stay, you know?
What?
Like, like in poker or blackjack or something, and you don't ask for a new card, because I think it's blackjack, because then it could like put you over 21, so you stay. And,
gotcha. Okay.
And it's like but you have to similarly like weigh. It's just something gamble metaphor. Could be better, could be worse. I'll stop now.
Okay, slot machine.
I get what you're saying.
I got it now.
For her,
I had to. Yeah.
It's much less of a gamble and more of just like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I mean, she does use her brain to like confirm
she always
it,
uses
but it's
her brain.
Yeah, but it's very much just like, you know, what you value when you're young and single and childless is going to be very different from what you value, you know, like 16, 18, I don't know how many years down the road it is now. Like she was, I don't know at what point in her life she was going after these promotions, but, you know, she said when she was young, like she had these goals and she was really ambitious, and it was all about getting what was it? The badge and bars, something like that.
Yeah.
Bars and badges, something like that.
I think so.
Yeah. To just get like more recognition, you know, in her workforce.
I mean, it also doesn't help. It also doesn't help that her old boss, I guess, it doesn't help that he turned her down like 4 fucking times. So
No.
Mm-hmm.
that does shit to people, and you're like, all right, well, I don't give a fuck anymore. Bye. Well,
And
not
without
bye,
good reason,
depends.
too.
Yeah.
So it was like
Yeah.
insult to injury, right?
Yeah. And for her, it's like, why try, the same thing
Mm-hmm.
over and over again, getting the same result? That's madness. Like, so she's not going to do that.
And I just want to also kind of, there could be a tie-in here to like the Athena Begins episode when we see her younger and like kind of start her journey as police. And you see like she was very ambitious, like she went down a different path than what she was going to, but that ambition stayed the same. And so I guess kind of like similarly, she's gone down a slightly different path, but she's learned to change like what she values more than chasing the recognition, because she doesn't need that, because she gives herself all the recognition that she needs, and her loved ones give her all the recognition that she needs, which is self-actualization. Like, you've got everything you need.
And I think she realized that it's not about getting recognized by her peers or, her superiors. It's about the people that she helps on the job. And that's what matters to her about her job.
Self-actualized queen.
I was going to literally say the same thing.
Really?
That was going to be my closing out.
Oh, wait, no, you say it.
Why? You already said it.
Oh my god, guys.
Let's go. Let's go to Chimney. Let's move.
He is not self-actualized. He's trying. I feel like he's working his way there. And
my man's is in a stasis.
Yeah.
Or feels like he's in a stasis. He is still in that car with the rebar through his head, even though life is progressing in front of him, and even with himself, because he's getting his post rebar checkup post I don't know how many months after. Is it like 2?
I think they
said 10 months.
They said 10
after.
months, and then they said that you are where you are 2 months ago. So I'm assuming he's like graduated to like, we only need to see you like every 8 weeks sort of thing.
Yeah, it's like everything's excellent, no TBI. You're good. And then what a way to encounter your ex, I guess. Because whole thing is just absolutely awkward.
It's a little jarring.
I would have walked away.
Yeah. No, and she's pregnant. Very. Very pregnant.
Yeah. To see her pregnant, and then even if I hadn't walked away at first, and if she was like, it's my husband, I would have been like, bye. This fucking bitch with her commitment issues.
And then she gets a husband
Here,
and
a couple
baby.
months later, married with a baby. Like, that's fine. Have a nice life. I don't need to see it or hear about it.
and this is one of the reasons why, not the only reason, but like it's an external reason. Again, we have that like external societal pressure sort of stuff. Like, she's moving on, she's creating a family. It feels just,
and she does that thing that I hate. That's like such a small talk.
Yeah.
Upper middle class thing where it's like, so what's going on with your life? Like, what are you doing? You're supposed to like list all your accomplishments, or like, who are you seeing? Or like, have you lost weight? Or are you having a baby? Like, and it's just like, if you aren't doing these certain things that are important to these people, right, then it's like, well, what even are you doing with your life? I'm like, meanwhile, he has a very fulfilling, important job.
Mm-hmm.
And he has, like, yes, he is stagnant. He is stuck. But he still has a good life. So it's like,
yeah,
I don't know.
I think he's like from the last season, and I think we talked about this in episode 1. He feels a lot more fulfilled in his professional life. Like, he's kind of learned, he's able to be the hero kind of like he wanted to be, and he feels more, he got like that recognition to in the calendar, so he's able to be like someone that people can look up to that he never got. And so I think he's feeling like he's grown professionally and like more secure in his self as a firefighter, but it's this other half of his life that is now lacking and has to kind of catch up, because none of this for Chimney is related to like him on the job, really, right?
Yeah.
It's all just like personal, sort of like that sphere.
Chimney really
him.
wants to be in love and like married. Like
he's such a romantic.
He's such a romantic, and I think that is like something that really played into him really just pretending and being fake, because he wanted that so badly that he was like, I'll just
he was creating a fairy tale for himself that he wants to fulfill, but he was holding on to what he was valuing was not the right things for him, right? So he was valuing, you know, him being like the guy, the action hero, and that's not really who he is or what as much of like he brings to the table, right? And I don't know if I want to say this now or in a minute, but that idea of that miracle, like we said with the Gloria Estefan song, where this is brought up again in relation to Chimney. So at the checkup, the doctor says like, you're a medical miracle and something like that. And then Tatiana also tells Chimney when she sees him, it's like, you're a miracle in more ways than one, because it gave her like that whole ordeal where she was a really awful person, which is also a theme that we will especially talk about next week. But like it woke her up, and she was able to reprioritize the things in her life as well. So then she was able to grow from that. And I think I can talk about this a little more as we continue to go on. But I think for Chimney, even though he feels like I remember. He's frozen in ember, right? From
oh my God.
From episode 10, when it was like Buck's frozen in ember, Chimney is also kind of frozen in ember. Bobby says that when he's like, you're still in that car in that accident sort of thing. So even though Chimney feels like he's frozen stagnant in stasis and everyone else is like moving around him, I think what he gives to people is like that wake up call. Tatiana tells him that, you know, this whole ordeal gave her a wake up call to go on with her life and be a better person. And also later when we have that locker room talk between Chimney and Bobby, it very much mirrors the locker room talk from the last episode where Chimney was talking to Bobby and essentially giving Bobby the wake up call to be like, this, you could save so many more lives because you have this like magic blood sort of thing. Like this could be your purpose. And so I feel like that's what Chimney gives to others, is like, he may be like this medical miracle, but I think his little miracle of like him being around others is like, because he's supporting them, he allows them to like see what like their potential even more. That was a weird way of saying that, but
but we got there. Yeah.
Thank you for rolling with me on that one. I appreciate it.
I just want to circle back to what I meant to say at the beginning of this before I got off topic myself.
Before I rolled.
Is that he breaks my heart in this episode because we learn that he has been keeping so much to himself and not processing like the trauma from this accident.
Yeah.
Like he kept telling everyone that he didn't remember it. We see him at the doctor saying that he didn't remember it. We see him like joking around about like having amnesia from trauma.
What a Chimney response.
Yeah, when he's like, I remember it, like he has nightmares about it. And so it breaks my heart that he's like just shown up like since the middle of the first season when we see him come back, and he's like, you know, his regular Chimney self, and he's like cracking jokes and he's being a huge support for Bobby. And like meanwhile in all of this, like he's dealing with all of this and not really dealing with it, but you know, he's reliving this and not like really having any support for it. And because of that, he doesn't know how to like process it. And you have to, like Bobby says, when they have their little locker room talk, is, you know, you have to process it before you can find the meaning in this, right? Before you can find your big life-changing thing.
Right.
Like, you can't have a life-changing moment if you don't process the life-changing event. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I mean, does it
Yes.
also sound like he just kind of, maybe he wishes he had the amnesia? I mean, like, because he wants his memories to go away.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy to me that he hasn't said a single thing to anyone.
Mm-hmm. It is wishful thinking on his part.
It's weird. No, I was just about to make a joke just to like kind of bring it up. I was like, kind of like, this man can't keep secrets, but he could definitely keep secrets about himself at this point.
Yes.
Yes.
That is.
And that's
So, but like, think about it. Like, he's reliving this trauma of like, he remembers, like, he was conscious going to the hospital. So he was like certain, probably like as a paramedic, especially, like that he was probably going to die.
mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he was by himself because I don't think anyone could go with him. Like, he was towed basically to the ER. Right. So his last memories before like going into surgery were like fear and being alone.
Which is another thing that we see happen.
Yes. And then, you know, he wakes up and yes, he has his fire fam, but they're still forming, right? They're still forging. And his parents didn't show up. So he's dealing with this trauma again. And then, I don't know. It just broke my heart.
And that's something that we see with Chimney so often is like, he gives off this idea and exudes this like funny, very just kind of like loosey-goosey kind of, you know, persona.
Yeah.
And
like someone else we know.
Yeah, exactly. And there's so much like going on the inside for him. And like, this goes back to like the independence, but also support system. He's trying to do this by himself and it's not working. He needs to rely on his support systems. And Bobby says, like, you have everyone around here that loves you, like, lean on them. And only by talking about it, only by leaning on others will that begin to go away. And I also remember a better way to explain what I was just trying to explain, because I couldn't find it in my notes and I found it now. If I may. So I was trying to get at the point of, just because Chimney doesn't feel like his life has changed doesn't mean that he's not impactfully affecting others. That's his gift. That's what Chimney gives to others. He impacts them in such a profound way that it doesn't seem like his life is changing, but he's changing other people's lives just by being around them and supporting them.
Well, his life, like, externally might not have changed much, but, like, he has changed.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about that last season, how he's gained a lot of confidence and, you know, is letting himself be more vulnerable and serious instead of jokes all the time. So it's, I'm glad that we get to see and learn all of this about him. And, like, whenever one of them, like, leans on someone else, normally Bobby, it's just a good emotional time. Yeah.
I mean, we just see Chimney, like, really battling with this idea of, like, I didn't get the life altering, I just got the trauma. But he's also like,
she got the life altering, I just got the trauma.
Know, which was a hilarious line, which again, very Chimney. But I also, for all the life altering events that he goes through or will go through, he always, right?
Oh my God.
Poor he baby. Is the boy who lives.
Leave Chimney alone.
Leave Chimney alone. He is really like the boy who lives.
Yeah.
He just keeps on surviving.
How many lives do you think he has?
More than a cat. Way more than a cat. Like 8
simultaneously, the 118 members have the best and the worst luck.
Yeah, it's really a coin flip there, huh?
Yeah, Depends on how you look at it.
It's like you're going to go through like the worst things imaginable, but also you're gonna come out the other side mildly fine. So
I thought you were going to say you're going to suffer, but you're going to be happy.
You're going to be happy about it. That's
yeah,
the gist. Yeah.
the boy who lived. You're gonna suffer, but you're gonna be happy about it.
Gonna be happy about it.
Yeah, and so like he talks to Hen about it, and he also talks to Bobby about it, and they just like show how much like they're there to support him, and again, I really just love that that reverse parallel between the locker room talk for Chimney and Bobby, because it really shows that they've got each other's backs as well, like something so important to like their whole job and them as a family. But then we also see this lovely closure when Chimney and Tatiana meet for this like final lunch, and this is kind of where we see that final piece kind of click into place that I think can allow for that self-actualization to take hold for Chimney, because he never really got the closure, but he also never really like said or admitted that he was kind of like living a lie because of what he thought that
he wasn't enough.
She would want from him, and because he thought that he just wasn't enough. And she does this lovely thing to say, you know, not that he needs like the external validation or the recognition necessarily, but it certainly helps, because she says like, you were always, you're enough, you're more than enough. And it's just kind of like one of those, it's so nice to hear that it allows him to kind of like close that chapter to then move on and grow.
And wait for the next one.
Yes, I loved that line. Oh, that was such a great line when they meet up surprisingly in the hospital and they're waiting for the elevator, and Tatiana gets the elevator and Chimney's like, I'll wait for the next one. And we know who the next one is, so in a very like literal and figurative sense.
Yeah, but Chimney and Maddie are on those nice little parallel trains right now.
Exactly. This episode works so well, even though we don't see a lot of Maddie necessarily in this episode. This works really well at kind of like what last season did for Athena and Bobby. It puts them kind of on that same path, I guess you could say, to grow individually, but also looking forward as a foundation for them to grow together. Perfect. I love them.
I do too. Are we ready for Eddie?
Are you Eddie for it? I have to do that not every time.
So Eddie unstucks himself from bed, and he has risen. And we begin our lovely, iconic, always will be forever famous morning montage of 911. Or one of the best. I'm pretty sure someone in the comments would be like, actually.
Actually.
But no, this is our opinion. We can say that.
Yes.
We'll probably change our opinion later after we rewatch something else.
Until they give me an actual, like, Buddie is canon montage.
Oh, yeah.
You're not beating this one.
I think it's legitimate, though, to say, like, this is one of the most powerful, efficient for storytelling montages that we see kind of probably anywhere. Like, it says so much without actually saying a lot. Like, it's not exposition heavy, but it like really clues you into like this wider picture of who Eddie is.
Yeah, it's kind of like at first glance just like a very innocuous, like, oh, this is him and his kid getting ready for work and school. But when you start looking at the surroundings of the home and like how he handles himself in his morning routine and his little like facial expressions and his body language around Christopher, it tells a lot in this short little montage. And that's why it's so good.
Yeah, it's really good to see like the comparisons, especially like of like, I guess not necessarily their home layout, but at least like their bedroom layout.
Yeah.
because you can definitely tell that Christopher's is more decked out. There's a lot more furnishings, like things hung up on the wall, and then you get a glimpse of Eddie's, and it's basically bare. There's almost no decoration in there.
There's a mirror.
It's like he has the essentials.
I have not seen it. I'm just gonna pretend there's no mirror.
There's a mirror because I was like, oh my God, does he have something hung on the wall? Does he have a painting or something? No, it's just a mirror. Like it's a utility thing.
The necessity.
Yeah, it's on the wall that's like the door opens up too. So like the opposite side of the bed. I didn't notice it on the first go round. But it is like his room is very like bare bones, essentials, just like
bare necessities.
Bare necessities, exactly.
Like a college student went to IKEA and was like, give me the cheapest.
Except a college student
basic shit
would also like deck it out in like all of these posters and whatever. And then, but you see,
but I'm talking about like furniture wise. Yeah.
But you see like in contrast, like Chris's room is like so decked out with all of like, also just like the bright colors. As opposed to Eddie's, because Eddie's is like more dark wood, more like the bedspread is like a blue, like a dark blue or something. Yeah. But Chris is like bursting with color. There's like reds and yellows, like a lot of primary colors as well. Yellow seems to be like very prominent. I think it's because it's like that big cabinet that he has, but it's just like it's oozing personality and like indicative of a child who is well loved and like taken care of, like materialistically, but emotionally as well.
And it's the master bedroom. I think that should be noted.
It seems bigger
because I don't know.
It does seem bigger.
Yeah, I don't know many parents who would be like, yeah, let me give the bigger room to my child. So I think that just says a lot about how Christopher is like his entire world.
I could have sworn someone on Twitter either made a layout or had the layout of the whole house.
Someone, yeah. Why didn't we like bookmark that?
For fucking real.
We should do that
because I definitely saw it.
I saw it.
I feel like we all saw it.
Just have to.
It might be in our Twitter DM somewhere, so just scroll forever.
Yes. So we were talking about Chris and his room and how it looks.
Oh, and
then we got to master bedroom
about the layout.
Yeah. And we have like the song playing over it. I know we talked a little bit about it was Milagro by
Gloria Estefan. Oh, yes. Yeah.
You should say that. I shouldn't say that. Like, I can't say it right.
Oh, please. I forgot that I'm contractually obligated to say all
yes, you are.
Spanish names.
Yes, you say the Spanish names, we say the white ones. That's the deal.
Yeah, anyway, Milagro by Gloria Estefan. Fucking
so much better. Thank you.
Fucking no, it's because like I start speaking, I guess, back into my English American accent when like I'm talking to you guys. Like I flip flop. So anyway, yes, by Gloria Estefan.
Yes. So it's
beautiful.
So we talked about how how the song is all about like, children are a miracle, and it really seems to be indicative of their relationship, and specifically like the way that Eddie sees Christopher in his life and how like he kind of exists for Christopher a little bit already. But it also does like the dual not dual action, dual job. It also acts as a way to ground Eddie and Chris in their cultural heritage as well, which is really lovely. It's just like another factor of like their characters, who they are. And like this entire montage is such a fantastic way to like a second phase of an Eddie introduction as a character, right? Because
you're seeing his home life and his family life where all we've seen is just like hyper competent, like mostly means business.
And to your point, also, that song, because of some of the lyrics that are in there, there's something about like children opening your heart and opening our heart, teaching how to love and being a blessing. Or it speaks to like how Eddie treats Christopher with also with his disability and how he like you see Christopher wanting to do things on his own, and like sometimes he wants to step in, but he doesn't, because he's like, okay, wait, maybe let me wait, because he could probably do it himself, because that's what Christopher would prefer.
Yeah. The first introduction in the first episode of the season is all about it's all about his reputation, his resume. He's this attractive new guy threatening Buck's status quo. There's no mention really of any of his personal life until we get to the second episode, when he makes the conscious decision to entrust mostly Buck, but also like inherently the 118 about like the knowledge of Chris. And then this episode is all about like the full wider picture, like all encompassing. And this is like Eddie Diaz, good dad sort of thing, right? So it really shows like how he's mindful of Christopher's limitations. And even though he wants, like you said, he really wants to help and make things easier for Christopher, he knows when to step back and allow Christopher the freedom and the independence. But he's always like there being supportive. And that's just like what more could you want in a character, especially like a character who's a parent? It's just like this really beautiful, and there's almost like no words spoken in this montage. I think they do have like their little like morning mantra, which is like, let's do this. And it's so cute because it's just like that is just like so indicative of their mindset, like both of them, because you know Eddie would have taught that to Chris, and just it's so heartwarming. Yeah. So that is, I think, that whole morning montage is very indicative of Eddie's personality beyond just his job, and a good introduction to how he is as, you know, this family man. And we see a lot of like his family dynamics in this episode, which is really neat to dive into as well.
Yeah, we get introduced to his
Abuela?
Oh, for a second I got really confused. No, it's because it's technically Christopher's great grandmother, and then I was like, I got confused for a second. Sorry, but anyway, yeah. So yeah, we get introduced to his abuela and his tia Pepa later in the episode. His dynamic with his family is very, I guess, you know, typical Latino household dynamics,
which is like very close to like extended family. And
yeah. So which is actually interesting. It's an interesting thing because I didn't think about his actual parents. So we're introduced to some of Eddie's family members. We get introduced to Abuela, who Eddie drops
Christopher
off with, yeah. And then later in the episode, we get introduced to Aunt Pepa. So Eddie's dynamic with this family is very typical Latino household. I would know because my parents are Peruvian. Anyway, just
you speak from experience.
I speak from experience. Like, for example, something that I know, like, I would get kind of like chastised for would be like with, you know, like leaving without saying goodbye. So like a proper goodbye. So like, you know, Eddie is like dropping Christopher off, and like he like runs back to his truck, and he's like about to leave to go to work, but like
because he's running behind.
He is running behind, and it makes sense. But his abuela is like, "Did you forget something?" Which is like, you know, typical. It's like. And it's also like a, you know, like a whole respect thing. Like you have to say goodbye. Well, you have to greet them, and you also have to like say goodbye properly. And then like there's also the dynamic of his abuela with Christopher.
Yeah, so I think it's very interesting to see kind of the differences with how Eddie acts with Christopher, and then how abuela wants to treat Christopher. I mean, it's a very like grandma thing. She wants to protect him. She wants to like coddle a little bit because that's her great grandkid, right? And she loves him. It's all coming from love. But you know, when Chris is like walking up the front porch or the doorstep or whatever, and he's in the crutches and Abuela's like, come on, Eddie, like help him out. Like, so, and Eddie's just like, no, he wants to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to let him do it. And that's another example of how it's another example of how Eddie is dad that knows best, right? Just Eddie knows best. Because he knows what Chris wants to do and he lets him. He allows Christopher that feeling of independence, that feeling of accomplishment of doing things for himself because that is within his capabilities, right? And Abuela is like, I'm sure she wants that too. She just shows it in a different way, and it's more of like, well, you know, she doesn't want him to have to struggle, but then that wouldn't give Christopher like that independence that he strives for and that Eddie wants him to obtain. So it's an interesting difference in dynamics there. But again, it's mostly like, I would think it's mostly like just a grandma thing. But this importance of Eddie knows best. Eddie knows what's best for Christopher. And that's going to be very important for the rest of the series, pretty much. Right. But it also shows how deeply the Diaz family cares for each other and loves each other, because these are just like two different ways to love. And they both want to protect Christopher, but they do it slightly differently.
Yeah, seeing the family dynamics is really great to just like dive into Eddie more and get to know more about him personally and see the kind of support system that he has, even though Christopher's mother isn't in the picture.
And we learn a little bit more about that when we meet Tia Peppa.
Yes.
Which is also interesting.
She is salty.
I love Tia Peppa.
She's
fun.
So bitchy, and I think that's why Eddie's probably like her favorite nibbling. Because he is also bitchy.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I feel like they're very similar in personality a little bit.
Who is this? This is my coworker Buck. Oh, I thought you just dressed alike.
Now we understand where we've seen little like
where the sass comes from.
Exactly. We've seen like little snippets and little pockets of sassy Eddie so far, and it's like, oh, this is a family trait. But you also see kind of like, again, with Tia Peppa, like she also cares so much for her family as well. And again, it is in a slightly different way. You see like all of the Diaz's love just as strongly, but slightly differently. Because I think Peppa is a little more maybe like realistic than Abuela is. And she very much talks to Eddie more like on a more equal level than Abuela would, and Eddie similarly. The rapport is different, right? Because it's
different relationship too. Yeah.
I always feel like the aunts are just the cool ones that'll give it to you straight.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I grew up. Like, I had my mom, and then, like, I had my aunt, who was her younger sister. So she was, like, 16 years older than me. So at that point, it was, like, either she was cool aunt or she was, like, sassy aunt who just, like, basically would tell me, just say it without, like, a no filter. That's what it is. No filter is what these aunts are. A lot of Latino aunts are like that, too.
Yeah, it's interesting. So she really kind of gives Eddie her unfiltered opinions about how Eddie can't keep leaving Chris with Abuela because she's just not up for it, and the stuff we get that little snippet about Shannon, who we don't know yet, but
his
we already are
ex.
Yeah, we're already getting like a picture set up for that, and it's kind of interesting there. So yeah, we just see like those different dynamics, but how deeply Abuela and Peppa care for Eddie, and also Chris. They're just in different ways. Chris is very well instructed in how to deal with an emergency.
Oh yeah,
right? Because Peppa said that Chris was the one to call 911. And I think that speaks to Eddie's, parenting abilities and everything like that. And
it shows that he's capable.
Right.
Yeah. It shows that he's capable of, again, doing things on his own.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that I think Eddie is very proud of for him to do. So like he takes pride in knowing that Christopher was able to handle an emergency situation essentially. And he's what, like 7?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty impressive no matter which way you slice it. And of course also in the waiting room, Chris is just like, everybody falls in love with him.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's charming the nurses and it's just like, it's so sweet to see.
It's very cute.
The Diazes are just easy to love. As we kind of see.
Well, we still haven't met his parents yet, so
the Diazes who are present and better than the other ones. I don't know.
Oh my god.
This faction of the Diaz family is easy to love, right?
But yeah, in the words of Tia Pepa, Eddie finds himself stuck in a situation because Abuela, the whole reason why they're in the hospital is because like Abuela breaks her hip and he needs someone to help take care of Christopher because his gringa ex stuck him with that whole ordeal. So
we get to see like his built-in support system in his family, which is, traditional, like still set in a way for the Latino community, but also not traditional because like his wife isn't there. So, and those are the only family members he has around.
And his parents aren't there.
Yeah, exactly. So his support system is 2 people. So very small support system.
Which isn't enough.
Yeah. And so we get to see over the episode, we get to see his support system expand. And we get to see this in what we're going to talk about in our scene dissection, which is Christopher at the firehouse. But by the end of the episode, it's like you've seen him just like go on this whole journey of like being stuck to being unstuck in the situation where he just really didn't feel like he had support. And I think it bears saying that like the biggest support here is Buck because he is like proactively advocating to be that support for Eddie without being asked, or like he's seeing a need, or he's seeing Eddie struggling, right? And he is already computing ways to help him.
Can I just say something real quick? It's really interesting how you phrase that, because it's like you can then, I guess, make a parallel between, like Eddie seeing Christopher struggle and allowing him his independence, but knowing when to help. And then Buck seeing Eddie struggle and knowing that he's trying to, be independent. And you see that this is an example with Eddie that like he has a support system, yet like a strong support system in place, yet it's still not enough because he just needs more help than he would otherwise if, say, Chris didn't have a disability, but that's not the reality that he's living in.
You need more than that, even if a kid doesn't have a disability. Like the saying it takes a village is not a saying for no reason.
A village has to be more than 3 people.
Yes.
I think. So you could then make that parallel of Buck seeing Eddie struggle and also knowing kind of when to step in and knowing when not to. But I think he does, and he does without asking, because I think if he asked, he would have been shut down because Eddie wants to be independent and he wouldn't have taken, any pity, or not that that's what it was, but anything like that. So I think that's maybe an interesting parallel. Now we can go into Buck.
So yeah, Buck is tying in with the themes. He is stuck but growing. That is what I call him in this juncture of the season, because he is stuck in his like romantic life and a little bit in his social life. Like he's kind of stuck in the same place he was, but it's changing. That's growing, already with Eddie, like very fast, like quickly growing. So he is stuck romantically, like in this state, like trapped in amber.
Trapped in amber.
Trapped in amber.
Amber.
But he's also growing like personally, and he's growing in his job, and he's growing in like his interpersonal relationships and how he steps up to like be there for people.
Mm-hmm.
So I also find it interesting, just because I'm talking about the being stuck theme and Buck, just to like wrap that up, is that at the end where they're showing everyone like where they are in the stuck journey, like he's the only one who hasn't moved forward. Like they're showing everyone like with a support system person, and like they like the chess piece has moved somewhere, you know what I mean? So they're unstuck, but he is sitting in he is haunting Abby's apartment of his invisible
really
ghost
is.
girlfriend who like he had to find that on Instagram where she's been for the past 2 weeks. Yeah. And he's just sitting down like so dejected looking. He's all by himself. He just had to help his sister move out because he's a good supportive brother.
But he feels like he's kind of losing tether of his support system. So he feels a little like unmoored. And I think it's interesting to look at both Chimney and Buck in this episode, because both of them are acting so much like the support system for others. They are really propping other people up a little bit. But there is a difference, because Chimney is actively like trying to let go. And by letting go and, you know, like having his closure with Tatiana, he's able to like move forward and is no longer stuck, even though his primary role in the episode is as support for others, kind of like Buck. But Buck is trying to hold on. And that's why he's still stuck. Because he's not trying to get that closure. He's just kind of like,
to a certain extent,
he doesn't want to let go.
Yes, but to a certain extent. But I also think like he literally just can't get a hold of her anymore at this point. You know what I mean? Like she's not talking to him.
I mean,
so how would he even like begin to have a conversation to try and be like, what are we now? Or try and be like, we're obviously not together anymore. Like, and get closure. Like there's no way for him to like, it's just such a weird place to be in when you're ghosted from like a relationship, like an actual relationship, not just someone you went on a couple dates with. You know what I mean? Like someone that you invested like months and a lot of time with and moved in with. So he's in a really weird like position where it's going to be really hard for him to like find that kind of closure that's pretty easy for Chimney to kind of, I don't want to say easy, but like in comparison easy, because he has time and distance from it. And like, you know, he has the person there to actually like talk to and get that closure with.
I'm not saying like he had to, like it's necessity to like obtain closure, but you can choose to just kind of like move forward a little bit. It is harder when you don't get close. I don't know.
Buck has never let anything go in his entire life.
And that's why he's stuck. Because he can't
show me any moment in the 7 seasons of this show where he let something go.
No, and I'm saying like that's part of it.
I just don't think he's like physically
closure
able
or
to.
not.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, we're saying the same thing.
Okay. We do this sometimes.
We're saying the same thing.
So sorry, Priscilla.
We're saying the same thing. He can't move on.
Yeah.
And this is why he's stuck.
But he wants to. That's the thing is like in this episode, we like finally, it's the first time this season where he's like acknowledging. And the way he does it is just so cute and so Buck. Or he's like,
is it weird?
That's my favorite line.
He's like in the middle of trying to free this poor man, right?
And he and Bobby are just having this heart to heart.
And he's like, do you think it's weird that I still live in Abby's apartment? And Bobby's like, yeah.
Bobby's just like, yes.
Like, hell yeah. He's like, me too. Don't tell anyone.
So the delivery, so cute.
I love that.
It's like I want to like, they're there.
Oh my god, honey. So it's like he knows that it's not right, like how he's being treated on some level, and he knows that like it's weird. Like he's known this whole time, right? But he's like getting to a point where he is like not in denial about it anymore.
He's not internalizing it
Yeah.
if he's able to speak to Bobby about it.
Yes.
And to both of their credits, they're able to be like very frank about it too. And I feel like sometimes Bobby kind of like tries to let them figure it out on their own. But in this case, he's like, yeah.
I also feel
Straight
like
up.
I also feel like I just realized this. So you know how like Buck and Eddie, when they like give each other advice or something, like it resonates
Mhm.
and like they normally take it or do the thing immediately, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I just realized that like Eddie makes that barb about like, you live in your invisible girlfriend's apartment and you're talking to me about weak excuses. So I'm like, that was the beginning.
And then
I'm
it's
like,
on his mind to, oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
because I was like, what started him like getting out of the denial phase of this?
Uh-huh.
So it's like you could see his face where he was like upset for a second and he's like, no, you're right. But he's also
Wait,
like, why did you have to like say that
it's
to my face in front of my salad?
I'm sorry. I'm going to say this because I feel like we overuse this phrase, but it's like, you know how we've been talking, about how like the 118 is still like doesn't fully know and understand Buck as much.
Yes.
Well, to have the new guy here who's only been here for a couple weeks and really truly see him, like, and then that like kind of jump starts. Oh, maybe that is weird, and it's, yep, just throwing that out there.
Anyway, I just was like, that was an interesting observation that my brain just decided to make me aware of at fucking almost midnight on a Sunday.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Thank you for also making us aware.
No, because like I also wondered what triggered that, and I was just like, maybe he's just going with the flow of things. I don't know.
I didn't make that connection either, because like we also have kind of Maddie who points that out in like maybe like more subtle ways, because and of course it has to be more subtle because she's also like benefiting from this too, right? But like once she makes the decision to move out, she's also like, maybe you should too. But it's not as like,
but that was
frank.
But it was also after the
after the whole thing,
after the tailpipe call.
Yeah. Oh my god. But you're right. That was an Eddie thing that made Buck kind of be like, huh.
God bless you, Eddie.
God bless you, Eddie. An angel from above.
Been here for 2 seconds, already doing the Lord's work.
So true. That line is just like one of my favorite lines. Me too. Don't tell anyone though.
Me too. Oh my god, he's so cute.
Oh my god. I don't know what it is, but it just like scratches my brain in the way like
he says it.
I don't know why.
The cadence and like the like I don't know. I don't know how Oliver picked it out.
There's a head tell in there, or his head is just like,
don't
tell me.
Well, because he's a puppy.
Yeah. It's like two. It's very contemplative.
Yeah.
Like he's really been kind of like ruminating on this and like has already kind of made his like judgment about it, but wants like that external validation again from Bobby, who he trusts. So when Bobby is like, yes, then he's like, me too. I'm glad you also feel that way. Like, I'm glad I'm not alone in thinking this.
Yeah. So, other than the like his journey of like being stuck in several ways and still being stuck at the end, but in the process of unstucking himself, like in his friendships, I would say, or his new one, at least. The biggest thing in this episode is seeing Buck be a one-man support system. Like, I know I just said a couple of minutes ago that like it takes a village, but Buck is a village by himself.
Oh my god, he is. He's supportive of everyone in this episode. He is Eddie's support system. He is Maddie's support system, like primarily, but he's also like a support system for the 118 when they're on the job, because he's so like focused on doing the job, especially like at the tailpipe call when there's so many like potential distractions, we'll say. But like even at the very first one, the security guard one, when they go into that apartment that's being shown by the real estate agent, and he just like all business, no nothing, just like goes in as the support for Bobby in this case, and yeah, it's just like he's just, I'm gonna support my team.
Yeah.
So he really is like
literally having someone
everybody.
hit on him, and he's like, I'm sorry, I have to support my captain so that he doesn't cut your friend's head off.
Yeah.
Please leave me alone.
So he's just like, it's all business.
Yeah.
Like not encouraging anything else. And
I feel like that call, like, it is like the prime example of the difference between Buck 1.0 and Buck 2.0.
Yeah.
Because I rewound and like watched him entering that bar like 8 times. And like, he is not looking at people. Like they're like, the girl's like, the strippers are here. And he's like literally trying to get out of the way, like, and not touch any of the people who were like, and like waving their hands like out towards him. Very much like eyes straight ahead. Like you said, 100% business.
And he mentions that too. Like after they rescue the girl, like when he's talking with Eddie, like he mentions it when he's asking, or he's kind of like, part of this we'll leave to slow burn. But anyway, but like when he's asking him like, oh, like, are they like basically not your type or whatever? And then he's like, because he's like, they're not my type either
anymore.
They used to, or anymore. So yeah, it's very indicative of like the stark difference between difference. Sorry.
But
the stark difference between season 1 Buck and now like the Buck who has changed and has moved forward, but is still stuck with that one thing that he really needs to move on from.
Yeah, and I think like it really is such like a 180 from Buck 1.0. And it's interesting. I do kind of think, I'll get back to your point in a second, but I do think it's interesting, like how much presence he still has. Like he walks in and like all eyes are drawn to him, just like they were in season 1. I mean, he's kind of hard to miss, but he still walks in with, in this case, it's more of like an authoritative, just kind of like, like I mean business.
I'm a firefighter,
like listen, yeah, yeah, like. Listen to me. If you know what's good for you, like I am part of the authority here,
right?
And we're going to make things better. Whereas in season 1, he walked in with his presence was more like his cockiness and his swagger and everything like that. So like it's interesting how that shifts as well. Like he still has presence, but it's just like funneling it in a different way.
I think it should be noted too that like even if he was single, like though they wouldn't be his type because he is like a relationship person now. Like he's not looking to like just hook up with people, right? Because he like figured out that was bad for him. So I think that's kind of more what he meant when he was saying that.
Yes.
Yeah.
He has grown, right? So like this is all examples of how he's grown as a person and everything like that. But that one thing is like his relationship with Abby is still essentially holding him back. I was going to say, but in his mind, that is part of his growth because it goes back to how he wants to prove to himself and everyone else that he is capable of maintaining a grown-up relationship. And so I think in his mind, that isn't something that is, it's starting to become something that he's recognizing that is holding him back. But up until that point, he still thought it was part of his like growing process.
Yeah, he attributes a lot of his growth to Abby. Like, we learn more of that like later in the season when he like continually says things like that. And then I think there is an interview with Tim Minear, maybe that we read somewhere in season 1, like towards the end, where he was saying like when they brought Abby back, it was like so that Buck would stop attributing like all of his growth to her.
I forget which article that was, but if we find it, we'll
find it again. I'm sure I linked it somewhere in Discord.
Yeah, so he doesn't think that's holding, or at least to a certain point, he doesn't think this is something that's holding him back, and he's now being able to recognize that like that is stunting his growth a little bit.
He's like, I'm happy for her. I'm happy that she's like doing what she wanted to do, and that she's obviously happy that I see that on Instagram, even though I haven't heard firsthand how she's happy. But like, when do I get to be happy? Which is like, I'm so proud of my baby boy thinking about himself.
Finally advocating for himself.
For himself, I know. And I think that's such an interesting question for him to ask in season 2, because, and I want us to like keep that in mind as well, because I think it becomes very important in future seasons, specifically season 6, talking about like, you know, Buck's quest for happiness, right? And if he's thinking this all the way in like season 2, it's a journey, right? And I'm very interested to kind of like track that a little further. So just keep that in mind as well. Like Buck thinking, when is it my turn to be happy? Or what does happiness mean?
Oh my God.
Did we kind of talk about Buck's perspective of Maddie deciding to move out as well? Because I know we talked it a little bit on like Maddie's side.
No, we didn't. So to Buck, you know, he is haunting his girlfriend's apartment, you know, who hasn't been there for months and months and isn't even communicating with him anymore. And he was so happy when his sister showed up because he was getting really lonely. So
that fear of loneliness coming
exactly.
back into
And
play.
so he was able to convince her to stay, and like they're rebuilding their relationship, and they have a really good foundation. But you know, the second that she's like, I need to move out, you can see that he is like a spooked deer. Like
a deer in the headlights.
Those abandonment issues popped the fuck out like immediately.
Yeah.
He was like, and he's even later like, you know, talking to Bobby about it. Like she's leaving me, and he's like, she's gonna be like 10 minutes away, bro. Like, what do you mean? She's abandoning you.
But to Buck, like just moving 10 minutes away is a huge thing, and you can see like the roots of the abandonment issues showing themselves.
It's because he has an anxious attachment style.
Oh, absolutely he does.
So, and especially because he doesn't have like 3 years, I think was the last time he heard from her before she showed up in LA. So it's like he doesn't have any guarantees that like she isn't just gonna disappear one day, you know?
Yeah. And I think having Maddie decide at that time to go out on her own, but paired with like what we were just saying about Eddie, maybe Eddie being the catalyst that helps open his eyes to, you know, what's really going on, that he is this like ghost haunting Abby's apartment. So he's like having this realization that I think in his mind he was like, he was feeling lonely, but he was trying to convince himself that he wasn't alone. Yeah. But like he was.
He's been doing that his whole life. He's great at it.
No, I mean, Maddie staying over, you know, with him in Abby's apartment, like, kind of helped him be less alone, and kind of like, I mean, yeah, he's still thinking about Abby and then not having having communication with her, but like, I mean, there is, I guess, comfort in knowing that, you know, you have a family member that you can go to and talk to about your issues, or in this case, like the way they started their conversation before she breaks the news to him, talking about like Eddie and Christopher, in the situation with Christopher.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like the minute she says that she's going to move out, like you could just see it in the eyes.
So nervous.
Mm-hmm. You can see it in the eyes because they're just like looking around.
That's why I said spooked deer.
He feels rejected
immediately.
It's like, oh great, another person leaving my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I feel like that's how it is. Like, I don't know, hand correct me if I'm wrong, but like, I feel like it got more like to the dramatics, like another person walking away, or my sister walking away again.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's like equal parts.
Like it's happened before.
I think it's equal parts his his experience and just assuming that everyone is going to leave like eventually. And like in Maddie's case, she has, you know, several times. Mm-hmm. But I also think it's because rejection sensitivity dysphoria, where it's like he has ADHD. Oliver Stark agrees that he does, so it's canon. I'm sorry. But yeah, he has ADHD, and a big thing with ADHD for a lot of people, I think everyone I know who has ADHD, is RSD, rejection sensitivity dysphoria, where it's like you will perceive anything almost sometimes as rejection, as some form of like
an affront to you.
Yeah, or I don't want to say like a personal attack, but like you perceive something to be negative that like maybe not even was presented that way. Yeah, exactly. So, but your brain funnels it into like, oh my God, it's all my fault. Yes. And we see that with Buck so much throughout this whole series, where he catastrophizes. And I think he's catastrophizing partly because of like his experiences with losing people. And he's like, wants to hold on tighter to not lose things. But also because of the RSD, where he's like, it's like conflicting, where it's like he wants to hold on tighter because he doesn't want to lose things. But he also is like, I also need to protect myself because people are going to leave. But no, I mean, that's absolutely a thing, like especially in romantic or very close relationships. If you're a person, who experiences RSD and there's like a common trigger, either like by a specific person or just in general, you can communicate that. Yeah. So it is just like a really interesting juxtaposition, not to use another one of our favorite sayings. But it's a really interesting juxtaposition in his character of that like anxious attachment style, where it's like, hold on, right? Because you're like nervous. You're skittish. I'm going to keep making deer analogies. Fucking Christ.
Well,
he's a skittish deer, right?
I mean, it's his namesake.
It is. So that part of him is like, hold on as tightly as possible, right? But then the RSD, very commonly, or at least how it works in me, is like push away, like back out, like leave before you can get left, like remove yourself from giving people the opportunity to hurt you, to leave you. Yeah. So you see both of there are two wolves inside of him. Both of them need therapy.
I was thinking as we were talking just a minute ago, and I'm going to pose this as a question, but I kind of know the answer. Or I feel like I know what we're going to say about it, but I just think it's interesting.
Is the answer Eddie? I don't even know what you're going to ask. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
It's okay. I mean, it can be. But do you think Buck is so adamant about becoming support systems for others because he doesn't feel like he has one for himself? So he's trying to fulfill that by being what he wants and needs, but for others.
I think partly. I think it's this innate, he never really had a family. And that's kind of like his inner child, like his most like deepest wish is just to like have a family. And since he
belong to a family who loves him.
Yes, exactly. And I don't think he knows how to do that in a way without like
giving more of himself to people.
Like I feel like he kind of use it like as transactional, where it's like not on his end, you know what I mean? Like he'll do whatever for anyone, but it's kind of like he's like, if I deposit enough things in the bank, then they will, you know what I mean? Like they'll let me stay around.
They'll love me back.
They'll love me back. Yeah. They'll love me anyway. It's too soon.
Wow. It is too soon.
It's always too soon.
That one is always too soon until we're actually talking about it. That who knows 2 years from now.
But I think
Season 5 is gonna hurt.
A year.
I think that is a layered. Literally, we could probably do a whole podcast episode on just that. So, just that question.
I could
I could talk about that for an hour.
Like honestly.
To wrap Buck's solo kind of arc up here, this is where we start to see Buck. I mean, we started seeing it earlier in the season, but this is where I think we really start to see Buck become that person who sees a need, fills it immediately without thinking, without asking for anything in return, without
the fixer.
He becomes the fixer. Yeah. So he's stuck, but he's trying to make sure that nobody else is.
Oh, there's a parallel. What?
Did you both just have brain blasts?
He's the guy who likes to fix things.
He is.
Quoted by, said by Edmundo.
Yes.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly.
He would know.
That's exactly it.
He would know.
I just want to put this in here. This is an opening for another conversation as well to be had later. But this, how did you say it, Han? This, seeing a need and like
seeing a need, filling a need.
Filling this need, like without being questioned, is kind of also like, it's a very Buck thing to do because it's kind of using himself expendably as well. It's that like self-sacrificial thing where he's like, I'm stuck still, but I'm going to help other people keep on like moving on and growing and everything like that at the kind of detriment to myself a little bit. It's that same like self-sacrifice thing that he's so good at. That's another conversation, so we'll save that for
that's a
another
long
time,
conversation.
Hey! Where's the fire?
So I think that leads us into our scene dissection, which this week is the second montage of the episode, which is the firehouse montage with Christopher.
Take your kid to work day.
I love take your kid to work. Wow, the wires just crossed. I love take your kid to work day.
It's so fun. This is also one of the best.
Just a sidebar. Just a sidebar. Almost wish that I had a firefighter family member to see if I can just like go to a firehouse. When I was a kid for take your child to work day, I mean. Because like
that would be so fun.
That would be fun.
All we have here is office job.
Maybe we just need to make friends with our local firefighters.
And they'll immediately be like, you make a 911 podcast? Like,
ugh, you're one of those.
Oh my god.
Like an ambulance chaser is like, ugh.
I'm not actually.
Ew.
Just fictional ones.
Like, you're not as good. I just want to know a little bit more. That's all. Just like show me around. Give me like
teach me about
actual the gaps in my knowledge.
Firefighters, because all my knowledge comes
ride
from
in the engine. That's what I want to do.
Ooh, that would be fun.
That's the only thing I kind of really want to do.
That would actually be really fun. So, as we talked about earlier, Abuela was watching Christopher and she broke her hip, ended up in the hospital. So Eddie's childcare for the day fell through. And I think Peppa had to go to work, but she said she would take him later. So he ended up having to take him to the firehouse. And we opened that scene with like everyone but Bobby, like in the like communal area with the couches and like having fun, laughing with Christopher. And then Eddie looks like fucking terrified when Bobby
goes like ghost white. He's just kind of like, oh my god. Yeah. Like he completely overstepped. He didn't, but like
but he was really, I mean, he's new, right? And so he's nervous because he's like, he doesn't, as much as Buck thinks that he just showed up and was like, I'm perfectly comfortable. That's just Eddie's mask,
this is where his insecurities lie.
Yeah.
Right? Is in being a good father and a good provider for Christopher. He doesn't care about really anything else.
Well, and being a good employee because he cares about his job. So it's like he hasn't been there that long. And like he's probably thinking like, this is not a good look. And like he didn't even contact Bobby because he didn't think about it. Like, you know, it was an emergency. His abuela's in the hospital. It was a lot, right? But Buck,
being Buck,
who was already like in that hospital like waiting room, just like computing the next 20 steps of his plan, probably like already shot like Bobby a text like while they were still at the hospital, like, hey, we're gonna have to bring Christopher over.
I was gonna say I really love what Bobby says to him when he's like basically apologizing for not clearing it up with him. And he's like, yeah, you knew where to bring him. You brought him right here. And I thought that was like really sweet.
Yeah, he's like, you did the right thing. You brought him to the right place or whatever. And that just really
I love them so much.
Family dynamics
like,
of the
this is a family.
It is a family.
It's a family show.
And it's just like the way Bobby kind of like outed Buck for giving him the heads up as well is like really sweet, because Buck probably did not necessarily want that mentioned like at all. It just
Buck,
like
all the stuff that Buck does that we've been talking about, and this is, you know, another example. He doesn't want acknowledgement for it, right? Like, he doesn't like really want to be thanked. That's not why he's doing it.
Which is funny because he loves praise. He wants to be told he's a good boy, but like,
yeah, but it's being thanked is different from
than
being praised. But yeah, and then Eddie makes a very soft face at him. Very cutesy, very demure,
very mindful.
You see how I show up to work with my child? He's so cutesy. Because everyone falls in love with him.
Oh my god, they do. They really do.
Yeah. No, because like I do think about, because like what you said, Hannah, about like him being like 20 steps ahead. Like I do kind of like imagine it in a way, like because like I'm like, well, how did he convince Eddie to just, well, I guess not convince. I guess like Eddie's like, well, now what? And then like he's like, let's take him to the firehouse. I mean, it's the only step. Like he just suggested, however.
Wait, that's probably is how it happened.
And then, yeah, but he also, like, on the side, he's like, Bobby, blah, 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 send tweet. I mean, text. So,
send tweet.
No, wait, I didn't even think about that. That's probably exactly how that happened, because we don't see that, like, in between. It's just, like, we don't even see Eddie show up with Christopher, and I kind of want to see, like, them meet Christopher and just, like, see their
initial
reactions. But I do like that you see them already kind of like settled in, because it's like, oh yeah, of course they would be so excited. They would, be so welcoming to Christopher and like this other half of Eddie. Right. But like, that's probably exactly what happened. Like Eddie was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I can't just leave Chris by himself and nothing else is available. So it was very likely that Buck was the one to be like, why don't you bring him over to the station? It'll be fine. And Buck, who's been there longer, like Eddie would probably be like, okay. Because he doesn't have any other choice. This is now my headcanon.
I'm just trying to think of, okay, no, the thing I'm thinking of, I need to say in slow burn. I just got to like write it down or I'm going to forget. Continue.
Guys, we're doing it. We're brain blasting. I knew we'd get here eventually. Sorry. Continue.
No, but it is nice. It's also nice to see how everyone else interacts with Christopher.
The way they bond.
And the way like they talk to him or interact with him. Like, I mean, everyone obviously is different, but like some of the things that you see, like, you know, Hen is like talking to him and joking with him, especially about like Chimney and the part with the pinball machine, and he like brings in fucking like a rolled up fire hose.
Yeah.
So he could like you know, stay. It's so cute.
Yeah, it really shows like the kind of like different relationships that are already forming, because like you said, Hen is all kind of like jokey. She just kind of like buddy sort of thing. But the way it's different, the way that Chimney bonds with Christopher, because like in the engine, Chimney's all like, or Christopher's like, what's that scar? And it's the rebar scar. And he said like, oh yeah, he had like the accident, he had surgeries, and it's like this little competitive nature with Chimney and Chris, but like they can use it together
like, how many
for like
times
the pinball.
Did we have surgery?
Yeah. And Chris is like, I had surgery twice, but it ends up actually being like 3 times because Eddie corrects him. So Chimney's like, wow, you're cooler than me. And then also like it's that little camaraderie and competitiveness. And then they do the pinball machine. But that's different from the way Chris is treated by Bobby, because Bobby just kind of like takes him under his wing and is like, here, see, like it's kind of like a Mufasa and Simba moment. Everywhere that the light touches is yours. Like, like look at your dad being a hero and helping people. Like, is that not what it is?
Season 1, you had Aladdin. Season 2, now you have the Lion King.
It's kind of really like that. And then Bobby like cooks like grilled cheese for Christopher and
in the weirdest fucking way I've ever seen.
Yep.
But I do recognize that it makes easy finger food, so
yes.
And everything is more fun in stick form. So just generally. But like he's like watching Chris eat his
You took her out.
That's what took you out?
Stick form, you know?
Stick form.
Anything on a stick. Listen.
Never mind.
We're in Florida.
I'll
There's
take you
lots of
guys
food on
out.
stick here.
Oh, Rachel. Sweet summer child.
Is there something that I'm
No,
missing?
anyway, I'm sorry. I'm just like, I just need
I'm
to,
like,
I just need to be, I just need to go to jail. That's it.
Just like going over my
No,
head.
I just need to go to jail. It's fine. But yes.
Anyways, so it's I am so confused.
It's fine. We don't have to.
We're gonna move past
Let's move forward, Rachel.
Anyway, so Bobby is sharing his love language, which is cooking, with Christopher and like providing in that way and just like being dad. And then they're all like helping Christopher like slide down the pole, like a real firefighter. And it's just, again, like kind of like with the Diazes, you see these different dynamics, these different familial dynamics, but they all like work together in such a cohesive way that it's just like a different facet of love, you know? It's so cute.
I did specifically really like the way that they shot and blocked out that like sliding down the fire pole, because it's like the shot up and you're looking at Chim and Hen and Chris, right? And then they're lowering him down. Then Buck and Eddie are there. So I'm like, oh my God, it's the partners. And then Bobby is just like the dad who is like,
Supervisor.
I did this.
Good job. Good job,
Bobby.
I'm back.
I'm so smart.
Yeah, because it also gives like the 118 like a chance to bond, right? Together even more. Because
he's happy when his people are happy. So
it's so cute.
Well, yeah. And also it's not like a typical day either. I mean, it's a typical day in the sense of they're still working, but like they had this like fun time with Christopher. So
a little ball of sunshine.
Yeah.
Ugh, he is a little ball of sunshine. And it's just like this beautiful like way to show this open acceptance, right? And how affection can grow so organically in this sense, and just kind of like it really becomes like, because of what Buck did, like without even asking, Eddie can now, he's like more than doubled his support system. Right? And that is the beauty of this whole thing. And you can see on, I mean, Christopher thinks it's like the most fun day ever, which like it is. Like, what kid wouldn't want to? I want a day like that.
Like I said.
Sil wants a day like that. Like,
Me too.
Let's just have fun in the playground of a fire station. It's not a playground, but but you see just like how much this really means to Eddie, and how much it means to be accepted for the gestures to all of him, right? Because at the very beginning of his character arc section that we were talking about earlier, it's like we've only really truly seen like essentially half of Eddie, and now we see the other half, and it's like it's all intermingled, and it's a whole picture of him. So for him to be accepted for the other half of his heart, his life, being Christopher, is so important and so meaningful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why he gives Bobby like such a big, like meaningful, like significant hug.
Yeah.
And I think we kind of get or at least I kind of get the idea that Eddie isn't a super outwardly affectionate, like physically affectionate person. Like he tends to be very like internal as well. So to like show affection so outwardly and so openly like that, I think really, really emphasizes how deeply this whole day meant to him, and like their acceptance of him. That's a beautiful moment too. It makes me verklempt.
Yeah, and it's just like, just think about like how wild his day was, how he went from like, he must have been like scrambling in his brain to be like, how the fuck am I gonna like, not just today, but how am I gonna like
panic mode
manage, and how am I gonna fix things, because he, you know, couldn't like, he wasn't having luck like trying to manage the system by himself, so he was relying on his family. But now he's like, well, I can't do that, but I don't really have anyone else, and like he's on a firefighter salary, so he can't just like pay for childcare. So like think about that emotional like roller coaster of all of that, and also as well as in the hospital, and then, you know, this firehouse that he's been at for like a couple of weeks, like welcomes his kid in with open arms, and isn't just like, oh, it's cool your kid is here. Like actively every single person is you know, trying to form a bond with him, and doing it in a way that you can tell that they're good with kids. You know what I mean?
They all are.
Yeah, they all are. And it just like, I don't know, I can't imagine like how wildly amazing but also surreal that whole experience probably felt for him, to like be in this new city, and the only support system he had was for his 2 family members, and now it's like suddenly after this, like I'm sure, you know, even if he's not like, oh, these people are my family, he's like, these people also have my back, like these people, and more importantly to him, these people have my kids back. These people have my kids' best interest, you know, and safety at heart. So
yeah,
it's just so good.
I was also just thinking about how interesting it is that, you know, in our themes for the last couple episodes with the earthquake stuff, and compartmentalization was a big theme, and having to kind of separate the job and your personal life or your family, like worrying about your family. Yeah. This is like flips it on its head, right? Because we essentially as the audience were having that with Eddie, like he was compartmentalized, and now to bring his kid into work, there is no separation of like church and state here, right? Like it's all so intermingled now. You can't like, it's locked in, it's woven, or interlocked or something like that. So that's also an interesting connection to the themes from previous episodes, and that just came to me while you were speaking. What a good scene.
That makes sense. It's so good. I feel like there's just so much there. Like I could talk about it for a while, but I feel like
it's
feel like we've covered the important.
We've covered the most of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just to kind of wrap this up. It's that hug at the very end too is Eddie also like showing how relieved he is that he doesn't feel like he has to shoulder the weight of being a working single parent alone anymore. Or not that he was alone to begin with, but like a lot of it must feel very lonely, right? And he doesn't have to feel that way. And that's not even mentioning when Buck introduces him to Carla, which is another huge help because he can't bring Chris to the station every day. So on that note, shall we move into slow burn?
It
Because I
is
know
time.
we have a lot to talk about there. it is time. Dun, 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 dun.
Glad we found our Disney reference of the season. Because I was like, are we done with A Whole New World? I'm not, please.
For now.
I think so. We're
Yeah.
moving on to different Disney references.
Well,
Okay,
actually,
now this is a challenge that we're
season
going to have to
7.
find Disney references for each season.
You just gotta let it happen naturally. Like, it'll come to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, but now it's in the back of my mind. So like,
Well, I did 2 Disney references in this episode. Well, not 2. I didn't. You
was the
got
other?
Lion King. I did Bare Necessities.
yes.
So we got Jungle Book in there.
Nice.
Nice.
I won. We won today. I don't know. Anyway.
Talk about forgetting your worries and your strifes.
Can I start this off with the thing that I thought about in scene dissection, just because I feel like it'll flow directly? Okay, so
Please, I'm so curious.
this is tying back into like Buck seeing a need, filling a need. So this really starts at the tailpipe talk, right? Where he like Eddie gets the call about his abuela, and like Buck is just in the background watching him, and then off screen, I'm sure, is like, I'm driving you. And it's like the same situation with like the earthquake, where it was like, you know, you shouldn't be, it's an emergency, like, I'm driving you.
Mm-hmm.
So probably offers to drive him to the hospital. And then, like we said before, that he tells Eddie to take Chris to the firehouse, like doesn't suggest it, is like, that's what we're doing. So like, this is the first time that Buck sees like a side of Eddie that is this vulnerable and like that is really in need. Cause like, I feel like other than being like needing reassurance, like about Chris, like during the earthquake, like all he's seen is like, you know, his work persona, work Eddie,
Exactly.
who is just like perfectly capable in every way. So, and I think that really, he's like, oh, like, I don't know. It's just something about him seeing, especially like when he's at the hospital and he's like watching all of this, because he's very quiet. Like, he's not saying anything, which is like super un-Buck-like.
He's very observant in this episode. Like he takes kind of a backseat and is just watching for a lot of the episode.
Yes. So I think another thing that he takes to heart in this episode is Peppa, when she says, when your ex left you with this. So like, this is new information. He didn't know that. He just knew that she wasn't in the picture. So like,
right.
He's like, oh my
Which
God.
Could mean
like,
anything.
right. So he's a single father because like his wife left him and abandoned this kid. So like immediately he's like, okay, well, that's going to put Eddie in like, I don't want to say a different category in his head, but like, it's just, he's learning so much more about like how not really altogether perfect this man is. And I don't know. It's just so interesting to me.
And it's something he can like directly relate to about the...
Yes.
He knows what it feels like to be left.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's the being left, right? And then it's her saying that Eddie is stuck. And then like calling him, like, say, my nephew's a saint, but I pray for him anyway. So saying that, like, you know, he's great. He's an amazing father. Like, basically saying like he's such a good person and like he's doing a great job, but like he needs help anyway. That's kind of what she was saying, or like what he was getting from it.
Yeah, you can only do so much.
I kind of think that was like Peppa
setting him up,
like low key, like assisting in the baby trapping.
Well, I mean, just from like the way she was like, and who's this? Like, just the like,
and who's this? Hunky random man.
It's very pointed. I mean,
because like, also, would Eddie really bring around? Like, one, does he have any friends that that he would bring around to his family. Probably not.
No.
So all of a sudden,
and because of how he likes that separation of church and state that we've seen so far, that like it's super weird for him to like, he just started this job and you're already bringing your coworker with you. Like you didn't just have them drop you off, like even if they drove you, to like send them off to the cafeteria.
This became a meet the family.
Exactly. So then the last thought on this train that I like wrote down on a fucking envelope in the middle of scene dissection is that I love looking at Buck in the background at the end of the firehouse scene, because he is watching like the culmination of all of that, and he's watching Eddie's face and Christopher, and he's watching Eddie hug Bobby, and he's just like, he's smiling and he's so proud, and you can just tell he's like, I did this. I did this.
He's like blurred in the background,
but you can see it so clearly, even though it's blurry.
Yeah.
Like big ass smile on his face, just watching as he walks away.
Yep.
Yeah.
To that extent, and I wrote this down, but this happens multiple times in the episode, right? It's that shot of Buck in the background, out of focus, right? But he's still in frame. He's intentionally, it's not even like far off in the frame. He's still like intentionally in frame.
Kind of in the center, actually, in the center and blurry.
Exactly.
Which is, okay, and that seems intentional now.
So it happens very, very much at the end of the Take Your Kid to Work Day with Chris at the firehouse. It also happens at the very end of the tailpipe call when Eddie gets the call about his abuela in the hospital. And I wrote on here, it's like so intentional because he's out of focus in the background. But with the tailpipe one, once Eddie like is on the phone and Eddie walks out of the frame and the camera stays on Buck and refocuses on Buck. So it like pan zooms to a like a mid shot, I think. And we're intentionally seeing his reaction,
thought process
to what's happening
of what
with
he's
Eddie.
Gonna do.
And
that's why the logical conclusion between that and then them being at the hospital is that Buck was like, I'm gonna follow him.
Yeah, but you keep seeing Buck just kind of like watching and like ruminating and developing a plan, because you see that at the tailpipe. You see him look on while he's talking to Peppa at the hospital. When, you know, Eddie is like looking at Christopher, you can still see Buck there. You see it at the end of the fire station. It's such good intentional storytelling through the visual, like through the cinematography. I know we're going to be talking a lot about the cinematography this season and going forward, because it's so impeccable. And it's just like you can see from like the production standpoint the choices to include that, and that just helps drive the story forward, because again, Buck being the supporting character in a lot of this story, but we're still able to see how he gets from point A to point B, and you can see like his gears turning and everything because he has kind of like taken the back seat in observing, and the camera shows that, and it's genius. It's so good. Yes, that's what I had to say about that. Also, real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm raising my hand. In response to your brain blasty idea and how we were talking about how Buck essentially meets the family during this emergency in the hospital.
Peppa, at least. I don't think he meets Abuela.
Well,
yeah, he meets Peppa. Yeah.
He meets Peppa. So I was just thinking it's kind of a parallel to when Abby's mom went missing and he basically met Abby and Carla and her mom in this like sense of emergency. So one so on one I can find parallels anywhere.
No,
okay?
it's good. That's why I'm laughing.
It's a good one.
So
I'm laughing at her.
So on one hand, it's also just like another example of Buck being a support system and like presenting himself as a support system. But two, you kind of also see a little bit of like the similarities and differences, because here he's seeing or he's meeting like the family essentially, or literally, really, of his partner, however you want to take that. And it's during an emergency situation. So a lot of the problem that we had with Buck and Abby's relationship was that they were never able to take the emergency out of their relationship. But we can already see, like, even there is a little bit of difference here with Buck and Eddie's relationship, because even though they work together and they're obviously working on emergencies together, like, they can kind of take the emergency of it all out and just kind of like be themselves and be what they need for each other without a huge catastrophic emergency thing, right? And that is because of the incorporation of Eddie's like other half of his life and that like decompartmentalization like sort of thing, right? So it's that like difference between those, even though it's a very similar situation.
Yeah. I was just going to say that, technically Abby's place is not Buck's place, but it's where he's living and it's his space. And this is the first time we see someone from the 118 in Buck's personal space.
Yo.
Interesting. And to like follow up on your parallel, how he showed up for Abby and he's showing up for Eddie here. What do we get to see that Abby never did? Outside of an emergency, and was just like, hey, can you come help my sister move? And immediately there.
And it's because they have each other's backs. It's a mutually beneficial relationship. It's not one-sided, and it's because they already know and they've already established that they're in this together, which is so much.
I have a
further.
thought. I'm waiting for you to finish.
It's so much further than like Abby and Buck's relationship got. Go, Sil.
So you know what's also funny?
Tell me.
What?
You brought a stranger into your girlfriend's home. That's your partner.
I mean, also Maddie, but like
Maddie doesn't count. That's
his
family.
sister, and he didn't bring her there.
Yeah.
She broke in, basically.
Yeah.
Wait, so actually, yes. Then Eddie was the first one that was invited.
Wow.
There's something about summer of infidelity, but I mean,
sorry. Oh my god, honestly, wow, why hasn't anyone done that? Why hasn't anyone done season 2 like while he's still with Abby? I haven't seen any of that.
Somebody tweet that and put it in. Y'all could have done that.
Buddie writers, por favor. There's still a couple weeks of summer left. Not when this is airing.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
Yo.
So like since we're talking about Eddie being in that apartment.
Well, she's not there.
Being invited, just like
I want to talk about how he's like, okay, suspicious that nothing's in boxes.
Oh, yeah.
And when Buck is like, it's Abby's stuff, and like Eddie makes a weird face. Like, I couldn't like decipher what it meant, but like you knew that he was living in Abby's apartment. Like, why is it weird that all of this stuff there is hers?
I think he probably
thought that like they actually moved in together, and like part of it was
either they moved in together, or there would be more presence of Buck in the apartment, and he never decorates anything in his apartment or in Abby's apartment or his own apartment, which is kind of like Eddie's bedroom.
Interesting.
Huh. We're having so many Blair's.
So like I just gotta say, I don't really have anything to like expand upon this, but when he's like, my sister didn't really have that much stuff. Like, you're not really here to move anything. And Eddie's like, what's going on? Like, why did you lure me here alone in this apartment under false pretense?
Oh my god.
But then his first instinct is to think, are you setting me up with someone? Which is like,
when he says that I want to
that he
introduce you to
wants.
someone, but like
Yeah.
before that, just like I don't know, just the face he makes and the tone of which he says, "What's going on, Buck?" just did something to me that just felt very gay. And I think it was just because, like, you did invite this man to your apartment where you're now alone under false pretenses.
He kind of catfished him a little bit. He lured him in.
He lured
Not really
him.
catfish.
Yeah.
So the whole, like, I want to introduce you to someone. She's exactly what you're looking for sort of situation, sort of a conversation happens. And Eddie's like, did you set me up with someone? Like, first of all, ew. Second of all, how dare you?
Ew. It's like, I told you, they're not my type.
Yeah, so that, like, is the callback to I don't even know what's coming up. I did not think that.
And for some reason I
said
heard that in the same tone that still goes disgusting.
Disgusting. It's so good.
Setting me up, disgusting.
So that's like the callback to the tailpipe scene, which I don't think we've talked about, like, in relation to
we gotta talk about it, but
Buddie of it all.
Yeah.
And it's so interesting. And just to start that off, like, how we talked about how, you know, like, Buck rolls in just like authoritative and da-da-da-da. I did want to point out that, like, when they're working, like, under the truck and everything like that, they are working so seamlessly and without any verbal communication.
They're not
because,
even
like, Buck
looking
is
at
on
each
the
other.
I know. They're like, Buck is on the little, like, rolly thing on his back, and he just kind of, like, puts a hand out, and then Eddie just, like, gives him the right tool. And, like, just, like, again, how many weeks has Eddie been there? And they're just, like, so in sync with each other. And, like, this goes back to, like, anticipating needs sort of thing, right? And it's just like, there's just no, they don't need to communicate verbally because they already know what each other needs, and it's just seamless. And it, like, even more so than I think you can kind of compare it and contrast it a little bit, because
with
at
Hen and
one
Chim?
point, yes, Hen and Chim and Bobby, because I forget who says, like, oh, maybe we should go get the thing. But Chimney has already gotten it. So, like, there's anticipating needs there, but there's still, like, yes, thank you. Bobby felt it was still necessary to like verbally say, like, hey, maybe we should go like this, even though Chimney was already on it. That's just because how good he is. So, like, contrast that to Buck and Eddie, who don't even have to say a word. Explain.
Explain why they made it a point.
We're just meant to be.
Explain to me why they made a point to, like, have this call and then have the two of them, like, be the focus of, like, the female attention, right? And have them both, like, I don't know, it's just super weird.
No, you know what it is? What it is also? So, yeah, they do get attention from both. They're both getting attention from all of these different girls saying how hot they are, or if they want to exchange numbers.
Exchange something.
Coming on very strong.
They are.
Oh my God.
What happened?
I said they're exchanging something.
I feel like Rachel made that exact same joke once upon a time. I just don't.
It's possible.
Remember.
Anything's
Probably.
possible for her to say on this podcast.
I know. So yeah, like, exchanging numbers. But, like, it's interesting because, you know, Buck is like, yeah, I think he says, like, I'm seeing someone, or he says, And he's saying, listen, get the fuck away from me, basically. In summary, he doesn't say it like that, obviously. Move.
The tone also is like a polite, please
get the
fuck
fuck
off.
away from me. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then with Eddie's like, basically, I don't think I'm what you're looking for, or I have a kid, is his, like, in Buck's, his weak excuse.
His go-to defense against women.
Yeah. His weak excuse. But like
they both give an excuse.
Yeah.
Interestingly.
Instead of just saying, no, I'm working, which would have been the obvious thing to say.
Yeah. Yeah, but like also I think for me it's just like the immediate clock, like Buck is just clocking that immediately. He's like,
He literally does the
because
puppy
he's
head
observing
tilt.
everything.
Yes.
Hello?
He's in his Sherlock era. This
episode really, they should have given him one of those hats or something.
He would look so cute in one of those hats. If he had a little curl sticking out.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Sorry.
They should have given us curly haired Buck since like day one.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway.
Robbed.
Season 8.
I know.
Thank God.
Season 8.
And Mustache Eddie. But yeah, so he immediately clocks that and he's like, interesting. Because I know, first of all, I know you're single. Is that really why you don't date? Like I need to know more. Like, what is the reason? There's no way it's your kid. No way.
He saw through that excuse.
But also, it was interesting why he's so invested in the answer of why Eddie doesn't want to date.
Well,
yeah.
If it's really Christopher, Buck could have been like, well, I'm baby trapping myself. It's fine. That's like, I'll find a way.
It's like, problem solved.
No problem. Exactly.
I'll be the father that stepped up.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, like Buck sees through Eddie's like paper thin excuse, but is also kind of curious as to be like, is that does that actually have merit? Like, was that not like just an excuse? Because like, I don't know if this goes back to maybe, his perception of, because this is kind of before Buck sees that Eddie doesn't necessarily have it all together. So like, I'm wondering if that's kind of part of Buck's like perception of Eddie as just this like super great, competent, attractive, because that's always part of it as well. Like, guy who's got everything going for him and a kid. Like, he's so cool and like so just like got everything all together and like, but he's not dating, which is strange because he's such a catch sort of line of thinking maybe. But it is also interesting though that they both give like a different kind of excuse. But it's
different but similar.
It works similarly. Yeah.
Because it's like, why are you giving a personal excuse while you're working? To me, that's the kicker. Like,
well, I think for Eddie, it's a way to like really throw someone off. Okay, so I think I have an idea of like why they additionally add this like personal excuse to both of those, because I think for Eddie, it's just like or for both of them, if they were to say, sorry, I'm working, then the next logical thing that someone would say, well
when
how
you get
about
off work?
Like when are you off shift or anything like that? So it's kind of not a way to like completely shut it down. So with Eddie saying like, oh, I have a kid, usually would, I guess, turn people off to be like, I don't want to inherit any of that baggage sort of thing. Not that Eddie sees it as baggage, but he knows that other people might.
Yeah, exactly.
So that is a surefire way to say like, sorry, I've got a lot going on. And they'll be like, I don't want to deal with that. Which is funny then that the girl is like, so I have one too. And it's just like so it didn't really work to how he wanted it. And then with Buck, he says like, thanks, but I actually have a girlfriend. I think that is a point of pride for him to be like, I could, but I'm not gonna because I'm taken. Because I haven't had that like awareness little light bulb moment to be like, maybe I don't actually have a girlfriend anymore.
Not yet.
Who's to say? So I think that was like a point of, because again, he's proving to himself that and to others that he can maintain a adult long-term relationship, blah blah blah. So it's a point of pride for him.
And you mean his family who like I'm not going to get into it.
Yeah, because
we're in the gay section, but yeah.
He's also being like surrounded by everyone else who has kind of judged his relationship previously, so he's going to like uphold that to the most that he can. So I think that's why they do the personal excuse.
I also think if they had reacted differently to the whole catfishing thing, that he would have had an easier time letting go of this thing, because he is trying to prove himself in a way that
he would have had their support.
Yes, and the respect and the trust, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But anyway, back to the gay things. The first thing that I thought for taking notes was personal space fears them, because like they're literally walking in like an open fucking area, and they're literally just continually knocking their shoulders against each other.
Like, they're this close.
What was the reason?
They're not even that close. They're like overlapping.
They're just like,
and again, that is a mid shot. They take up like a third of the
There's
frame.
So much space,
and there's another
room
two-thirds
for Jesus.
On the other side.
There's room for Jesus, but they ignored that.
Wow.
Something Catholic guilt.
Wow,
no
again. Owen Wilson's wow.
Which brings me to
wow.
A funny haha, but also a little bit of a question that maybe we could do another mini-sode on, which is like the way that they introduce Eddie in this episode, and then have him say, after being hit on by women and asked by his coworker, so like, why did you like turn them down? They're not my type.
What does that mean?
I'm sorry,
yeah,
that's a gay man. They're not my type.
Like, sir,
what else could it mean?
Expand.
There were so many options there, right? And they were all very like attentive to them.
So many things you could say. I don't date people I meet on calls. There's so many things. So many things you could say. But instead it's not my type. Super fucking vague.
That's what you go with. Yeah.
So then my question that I pose maybe for a mini-sode is, how far down do you think the gay thoughts are repressed? Like, do you think it's
so deep?
Do you think it's all like subconscious, or do you think there's any conscious amount of ick factor when he like thinks about having to perform, in heteronormative?
But are we also, I have to ask, but are we also considering Demi Eddie?
Yes.
Always.
Because not my type is like one of my top Demi Eddie points of evidence. Examples. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because like I know we're not there yet with Shannon, but especially I forgot, you know what, I just remembered that they released that one deleted scene about like how they got together.
Oh yeah.
That I have to write down and remember to consider one day. But
that's also evidence of Demi Eddie for sure.
But you can also be gay and Demi.
Yes.
But
these two things can be at the same time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Exist simultaneously.
I think there's an argument for
both.
Any combination of those two things.
Mm-hmm.
I can't see bisexual unless you're going to be like demisexual, bisexual, but then at that point
I would say any of the queer thoughts are buried about 40 feet under wet earth.
Wow.
Rachel, I think you need to go to jail.
That felt like a hate crime, I'm not gonna lie.
Like, I did not see that coming.
You asked how deep the thoughts were buried, and I think in any combination of gay, demisexual, like any of the queer thoughts, I think they are so deep.
Yeah.
That like
go.
So like my personal opinion on this very quickly, and we can go into this deeper at another time as well, is like you know when you are trying to convince yourself so hard that like you kind of forget what you were trying to like dissuade yourself, and it's just like the only thing that's left is like if you're okay, I'm going to use an example here, and I don't know if it's a good example or not, but I'm or at least at one point I was allergic to cherries, like fresh cherries, and I was persuaded by my dad to take a bite of a cherry one time, and you've heard this one before. And I had a very mild anaphylactic reaction, which ended up being fine. But I'm pretty sure I remembered, like, at that moment, like, as that was happening, I was like, oh, wait, I feel like this has happened before. Mm-hmm. And I've just convinced myself that I didn't like cherries, so that I just stayed away from cherries. And until I was reminded that it was like, oh, wait, maybe I don't like cherries for this particular reason. But the only thing that was left was the, like, I don't like it.
That's actually a great analogy.
So, like, that's kind of, I was fine and my dad felt really bad, but it's okay.
Because I feel like,
so, like, that's what I feel like is kind of happening here. Like, he's convinced himself so hard because things are so buried that, like, the only thing that exists in his consciousness is, like, not my type.
Yeah.
So,
like,
sorry, that was long-winded, but
I think in my head, I see Eddie as like a 5 on the Kinsey scale, like a 5.5. And like Shannon is like the exception, not the rule when it comes to like having actual attraction to the female population.
But that's where like the demisexualness,
yes, because they're best friends,
comes into play because of that emotional connection.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was first and foremost. So yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah, but we see him display more physical attraction to Buck in the first episode than I ever see him display to any female love interest,
to any of his other girlfriends.
So sorry to the women of LA.
So, and he did not know Buck. They did not have a profound bond yet, you know?
Oh my.
Mm-hmm. But that helps. Certainly.
Obviously.
Yeah, it plays very much into each other. Like, it's kind of one of those things that are like simultaneous. Like, you kind of can't have one without the other a little bit, I think, in his case.
Yeah, but I don't think he realizes that about himself. So, like, I think maybe, like, in high school, he was just like, I don't know, something's weird with me. And then he was like, oh, okay. And then things, like, he started feeling what everyone was, like, talking about, like, with Shannon.
I'm normal.
Right. And so he's like, okay, well, obviously, like, I can just make this happen again. And so that's what he keeps trying to do, but not understanding that was not what happened.
That was a very particular special case.
Yes.
And this is why it doesn't work.
Yes.
Anywhere else. But yeah, it's just like, you know, they're not my type. And then Buck's like, they're not mine anymore.
Interesting.
Like, like, we know he means because of that, blah, 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 because he's you can still have a type even if you're taken, right? So just like, I think in that case, maybe it's more of like his type isn't the one-off little like flings or anything. He's looking, his type therefore is more like full relationship, like sort of thing, which
emotional intimacy.
Emotional intimacy, which who does he have that with now?
Emotional intimacy, and they need to have an ass.
Yes.
Hates to watch Eddie go.
Those are the
loves to watch him leave.
Oh my god.
Are we done with the tailpipe scene?
Please.
I think we need to be.
Okay, iconic scene. You will always be famous. We have to move on.
Then bringing that back to when Buck is introducing Eddie to not a date, but a Carla.
Mm-hmm.
And can we just talk about like Eddie's reactions to this? Like his very subtle like facial expressions are so interesting.
Mm-hmm. Like when Buck opens the door and she's like, Buckaroo! And he's like, it pans to him and he's like, what the fuck is happening? So now he went from being like, oh my God, I have to perform. I want to throw up.
He was full on like preparing to mask. Yeah.
Yeah.
To being like, I am interested now. I am intrigued.
You see him like physically kind of like the tension
deflate a little bit, again. Like in a good way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like he's oh my God. It's that sigh of relief. What did we talk about? It was it like in the first episode that like that breath that he's able to take in Buck's presence, just like because he doesn't have to perform or anything like that. He can just be like, I can just be myself.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it was like you could see him shutting down a little bit, like in preparation, to be blindsided, and then it just kind of like a decompression, like the release. That wasn't 201. And then when Buck explains, you know, Carla's like the best person to have to like fight red tape and the bureaucracy and all that stuff, and then Eddie like finally understands what's going on, and he just
immediate hard eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Immediate hard eyes.
Insert
like the hard eyes were
motherfucker
so big.
GIF. Like it's literally a cartoon character.
Yeah,
they were so big that you could like feel it physically tangible, like outside of the screen. Like, wow. Like, shut your face, man. Shut your face.
Beware your face.
Can you think about like how overwhelming like everything that Buck has done for Eddie just in this one episode has to feel to him? From going from not having
it's so like big.
Like from having like he does have kind of like a big family like back in Texas, right? But like, you know, he didn't feel like
those
he
aren't
had
the people that he trusts.
Right. Like he didn't really trust, didn't really have the good kind of support. So he moved here where he only has 2 people who are doing their best to support, but
which is good, not enough.
Yes. But like just like the overwhelming, and I think that's why the hard eyes are like, it's not just this thing, it's like all the things that Buck has done like since he got that phone call that a boil was in the hospital.
That have snowballed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I feel like we have to like take note of this because, you know, you said trust and I'm like flash forwarding to the will.
No!
But I don't want to get into that.
Yeah.
Because we can't, but flash forwarding triggered.
I forgive you, but I can't trust you.
Trust is a big thing.
I was triggered by trust. But
I forgive you.
Stop.
I also kind of feel like though like this moment of realization of like Buck bringing Carla in to help him out in this way is just like the little cherry on top, speaking of cherries. And I kind of feel that it's another kind of like light bulb moment for Eddie, and you kind of like see this happen as he's like looking with these gigantic hard eyes, and this is the same kind of feeling of appreciation that he had for Bobby that like inspired him to hug Bobby so
right. But look
much.
At the difference.
Look at the difference.
Look at the difference.
Exactly. It's the same thing. Like, oh my God, look at all, like, oh my God, you've done all of this for me, but for my kid. And you haven't even known my kid that long, let alone me. And it's just like this kind of like, this moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not the
So I feel like I feel like the
similar.
I feel like the hug for Bobby was kind of like a
thank you for understanding.
Like a thank you for understanding, but like kind of a thank you for building this and like and fighting for me to make me a part of it. You know what I mean? And letting my kid also be a part of it. Like I feel like that's kind of what it was about more than like, oh, I'm so thankful like specifically to you only, if that makes sense. And the way he looks at him is like the kind of way like guys do when they're like trying not to cry or like they're trying to like tamp down the emotion. You know, and he gives him a very serious hug where you can like see all of the emotion like underneath, but it's not like
because that's from the professional like circle, and then Buck has again that like lack of separation of church and state anymore. Like Buck has completely like transversed or transcended just the work environment like more than anyone else has, to like really insert himself into Eddie and Christopher's life as a support system.
Yep.
And it's just,
but I just like, I don't know. I just want to take the picture of the face he's making where he's kind of like thanking Bobby for the same kind of thing ish. And then the face that he makes at Buck where it just literally looks like a Hallmark movie, like screenshot of someone who just realized they were in love. Like, what the fuck Twitter-pated bullshit is this?
I love you.
So I kept thinking, like, after the hug with Bobby, I kept thinking, well, you know, Buck did this too. Like, why didn't he hug him? And
I love that too.
But then I was like, okay, whatever. Because like I'm just like, you know, whatever. I like let things slide for some reason. I'm just like, I can't. Or it's a professional setting. I mean, that could be another factor or something. I don't fucking know. Anyway, you could probably
but I had that thought too.
But yeah, I had this thought. And then like, you know, with the heart eyes and everything after, you know, introducing him to Carla, I'm like, because I was just thinking about it, I was like, he could have hugged him there, like as a thank you. And then I was like, there's an audience. That's why. Because it would just be, one, it's out of place. And two, it's just like, there's an audience. I feel like headcanon. This is going to be more headcanon.
They are alone almost every time they do like a meaningful
Yeah. No, but when what Still's talking about, like Carla is there and like has just entered the apartment.
I just thought what she was trying to say too.
Yeah.
No, but I wasn't saying they're alone now.
Like,
I'm saying like
though.
when Eddie does initiate those like really meaningful physical touches, they're normally alone.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So I'm like thinking, oh, so what if actually right after after Carla leaves, like maybe he was like, you know what, hug. I don't know what kind of hug, but hug, and we were robbed. Like a thank you hug. Thank you for everything, for all that you did. The firehouse, calling, you know, letting Bobby know about Christopher.
Yeah.
But without saying it. And I think that's why he hugs Bobby, because he can't say that shit out loud. So he hugs him.
That's it. Sorry, that was really loud. Brain blast.
Yeah.
There's so much of this episode, just like in general with Eddie, that is nonverbal, right? That is not spoken, but is shown in this. Yeah, and it just like this whole episode just works to like help enforce that aspect of his character, like the morning montage, the second montage, him, as much as Buck also, like for a yapper, Buck just kind of like sits and watches too, but like that is kind of what Eddie does. He just kind of like takes everything in and doesn't let as much out, which I'm sure we can read into in so many other ways as well. But yeah, that's so, because like he doesn't even hug Buck, but he also doesn't have to like thank him verbally, right? Because they work so seamlessly without verbal communication, that like he can just kind of give him.
Buck heard it in the fucking hard eyes. Like,
like their mental communication, and Buck knew that it was appreciated, which
weird
is
little gay telepathy.
Which is so, I think, also so important for Buck too, to like just have any kind of appreciation. Like it doesn't have to be verbal, but to know like he is appreciated for the things that he does. Like it just, this episode is so good.
So I mean, did we save the best thing for last? I don't know. There's so many good things.
Maddie?
But yes. Oh, Maddie.
Oh, yeah.
Number one,
Maddie.
buddy truther.
She clocked it from the beginning.
She really did. She was really like, you're trying to baby trap yourself. Like she
saw that coming a mile away.
She's like, you came home and you haven't stopped talking about how you're doing deep dives to figure out how to like provide. I just like, so when I did the first rewatch of this, I realized, because I've read so many fics and because I only watched it like one time before this, I think the whole way through, that like I thought that Eddie told him that like there was so much red tape and it was really hard to like get. No, it's because Buck is doing his own fucking research, because Peppa said the thing and he was like,
let me look into this.
I'm going to fix it. it.
He's not an expert on any of this stuff either. And like,
no, he tried his best and then he was like, I'm going to call in an expert. Call in backup.
Which is so fantastic, though, that he even had Carla. Like, how lucky is it also that he knew the perfect person for the job? Like, I just love that.
Abby did do something useful.
I was going to say the same thing. I was like, if there's one thing that we can credit... Okay, fine. There's two things, but like,
oh gosh,
yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Buck comes home, and I'm imagining that like every day since Eddie started at the 118, he comes home and he just yaps about Eddie. And then once he met Christopher, it was like he's yapping about Eddie and Christopher. And so it was like, and now to the point where he was basically like inserting himself into a co-parent role.
You know what's interesting? It's some of the details that he tells Maddie. So like there was something about like how there was I don't remember the first part, but I remember the second part of what he says. But it's like in relation to Eddie and Christopher. So like I don't remember what he said about Eddie, but I remember what he said about Christopher, which was like, and Christopher doesn't want to feel like a burden to his dad. And I was like, that's an interesting thing to say, because did you talk to Christopher about like that? Or
it's projecting.
Oh,
that's a pure projection, because like Chris doesn't feel like a burden to his dad. Eddie doesn't feel like Christopher is a burden at all. That is classic Buck projecting that he feels like a burden to, well, everyone, but like especially his parents, and it's so early on, and that's hard to clock.
Yeah. It's one of those like throwaway, not really like a throwaway line, but it is kind of like one of those lines that kind of go like, whoop.
There are no throwaway lines.
I do wonder if like Christopher said some sort of offhand comment.
Could be.
Like about, oh, my dad, like something about like my dad seems stressed out, or my dad, you know what I mean? Something along that was just like an offhand comment that like he wasn't upset about, but that like Buck read into.
Like in a more innocent way. Chris has done this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Chris is a very perceptive kid.
Yeah. But also, sorry, I think it's really interesting that they kind of gave everyone a moment alone with Christopher except for Buck.
Yeah.
I
noticed that too.
It's kind of implied that, well, it was kind of implied again from the last episode that like he already met Christopher with like dropping Eddie off at the school to pick up Christopher and like probably drive them back to the station or home.
He's already started the adoption papers.
Yeah, so like I guess that's kind of implied, because Buck is already doing all of this for Christopher, that it's like we already kind of know that, you know, just like Eddie would die for Christopher, like Buck kind of would too. He's like, I love this kid. I love all kids, but this kid is super great.
Yeah.
But it's also like, it is really interesting to like, so what you were saying about how Buck was talking about how Eddie is always wondering how to take care of Chris, and Chris feeling like a burden to his dad, and how that could be a projection. Even though Eddie doesn't feel like any of that, Buck also recognizes how great of a dad Eddie is.
Mm-hmm.
And that is because he knows what to look for what makes a bad parent. And he has an example of a good pseudo parent in Maddie, because we already know, like, she changed his diapers. She basically, like, kind of raised him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So that implication that, like, their parents were not good, like, Buck is able to recognize right off the bat that Eddie is a good dad. And that probably also plays a lot into why Buck is going so hard at bat for them. Because he knows this kid, first of all, is a special, wonderful, great kid who has an excellent dad who cares for him so much.
Do you also think that maybe the reason it was so easy for Buck to trust Eddie from the get-go, like once he gets over himself, is because he sees how good of a dad he is? And that means like so much
He's
to him.
a good person.
Because he's like,
Mm-hmm.
it says so much about the person that he is, seeing how he cares and how he parents. Like, so many thinky thoughts in this episode.
Yeah, so many.
So many thinky thoughts. Yeah, I definitely think that's been something that's kind of been cooking since, I guess, like episode 2, when Eddie told him about Christopher. But I think, like, they did have to establish, like, their rapport just professionally first in order to get over that hurdle. So it again is just like this lack of compartmentalization. Like, once Buck knows more about Eddie and more about the type of person that he is, not just as a firefighter, but like as a whole identity of a person.
As a father, as a grandson, as a nephew.
Buck is seeing, just like the audience, the full picture of Eddie in this episode, and has decided to stand. Like,
Yeah.
No, he's simping. He's simping so hard.
It's like hot, amazing single dad.
I know. I definitely think that plays into it. Like, what?
Nothing. Dump truck.
Oh.
I said with a dump truck.
Very important.
It's a very
prerequisite there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely think it plays into a part in deepening their bond so quickly and so deeply as well, that like if Eddie hadn't told him about Christopher in that second episode, which again was like the third day on the job, or like second week on the job or something like that, because Buck spent the entire like second and third episodes trying to reassure Eddie about like his son is safe.
Yeah.
So like Buck had already kind of like made that decision, but like seeing it in front of his eyes, how great of a father and just like overall family person, just how great of a person Eddie is beyond all of like the professional like reputation that precedes him. If we didn't have that, it wouldn't be as deep as quickly as it is. So I think that
I think it plays a part. I think it goes both ways. So it's like he's able to trust Eddie very quickly because of, you know, how he is seeing him be with his kid and his family. And Eddie is able to trust him so quickly because he's like, this guy really meant it when he said he had my back. And now he's, you know, he's doing all of this for my kid. Like, that's why like a year after knowing him, he's like, I'm going to put you in the room. Well, there's no one in this world I trust with my kid more than you. Like, you've known this guy for a year.
It's because of all of this. Like, they're able to get, again, so deep so quickly, but it goes both ways. Every single thing about their relationship is a two-way street with them. So where one gives and the other one takes, there's an opportunity for the opposite. And that's what makes it so strong of a connection and a bond and a friendship or more.
Yeah.
Because it's not just Buck going out of his way to do all this for Eddie, but it's Eddie going out of his way to do stuff for Buck later on as well. And it's because of that inherent trust and respect that you have to build any kind of relationship on.
So, to wrap this up, to come back to Maddie 10 minutes later.
Oh, yeah.
So Maddie's just
This
kind
is
of
why
like,
we have this whole section.
yeah, Maddie's just kind of like, and she's making faces. She's serving face this entire
and
conversation.
writing mental notes like,
Yep.
Oh, yep, okay.
It's the older sibling. It's the older sibling when you immediately clock that your younger sibling has a crush on someone.
Ooh,
Yes.
you get a crush.
Yep.
And I'm gonna tease you about it.
So she's like excited. She's like, does this mean that you're like finally getting over Abby?
Which is an insane thing to say in this episode.
But it could be
about
nothing.
being stuck. Could mean nothing.
Could be nothing, but
like to have this in the episode of like the being stuck sort of way and to equate Eddie to Buck's moving on from Abby is wild. Just like point blank. Like we know Buck isn't ready to move on from Abby yet. But the way he's moving, it kind of seems like he is as this like he's kind of like moving his loyalty and his like support over to Eddie because Eddie is able then to do the same for him, which he never got with Abby. And just the fact that they're equating Eddie and Abby together in this kind of way from episode 4 that Eddie is in. What? What do you mean?
If not gay, what are we doing here? Be so fucking for real right now.
What does it mean? Like, tell me it's not that.
Tell me the reason. But, and like we
There's
said earlier,
no
I'm not going to
other
go on a
way.
tangent, but like we said earlier, like he is literally the reason that he starts to move on because like that little rib from him starts the wheels
Got him
turning.
thinking.
Exactly. I think Sol wants to talk about a parallel.
The wheels in your head always
Wow,
turning.
how did you
Sorry,
know?
now I got Gaston in there.
I don't know. I saw you type it like a half an hour ago and I was very
How'd
excited
you know
about
it was a parallel?
Oh, I want to hear this.
Oh, well, I mean, it's nothing. Could be nothing. Could be something. But I mean, it's just like the air of the conversation or like the way basically look in a nutshell. Like this conversation is literally paralleled in, or I guess, is that even a parallel? Do we call that a parallel if we're going forward?
Yeah, still a parallel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, it's
Yes.
a parallel to like the
Yes.
conversation that Maddie and Buck have in season 4 about
7.
in season 7. Yeah. In season 7 about
Controversial.
what did I say? Did I say season 4?
You did.
Yeah, but it's fine.
It's episode
It's season 7. We
4,
know. We know.
Season
Okay,
7.
it's a parallel to an episode in season 7, which is also episode 4.
This is also
of that-
episode 4.
of that.
Yeah.
Which could be nothing.
Nothing.
Which could be
nothing. It wasn't like season 7 heavily paralleled season 2 or anything.
Yeah.
Isn't 804 supposed to be Eddie's 100th episode?
Jesus fucking Christ.
What is happening? What is up with the 4th episodes of these fucking seasons, you know? Like, I don't understand. But anyway,
I haven't confirmed that, but
Yeah.
keep going.
yeah, we need to confirm that later on. Yeah, but it's kind of like, well, there's some actual elements that are like parallel because like, oh no, I'm thinking about something else.
Keep going. You might end up there.
Okay, fine. There is, so it's a parallel of that. So like they're having a conversation about someone that Buck is, Buck is describing. I can't say, like with Tommy, it was just like the whole, or with Eddie and Tommy, so to speak, it was just like this whole jealousy thing and whatever. And then like Christopher is also a subject in this conversation, and how like, oh, Christopher thinks like that Tommy's so, yes, Tommy's so great, and all this other stuff. And then like Maddie is just like also teasing, like,
it's the same kind of teasing.
It's the same kind of teasing. Oh,
did you circle it with a heart
around? So yeah, it's the same like
same thing. Like, oh, do you have a boy crush?
My oldest sibling.
She says it in the same way.
Rough.
Yeah,
and like I think we only see that from Maddie in these two instances, which also could mean nothing.
It could be something. And then like flash forward in that episode, she does, what was it? It was about, or was that episode 5? Misremember. The part where she was like, if you have something to say to Eddie.
That's 5.
That's 5.
Yeah.
Okay, just disregard this. There was something else. So also there's like a little bit of a callback that I just noticed. When before the buy buck scene in season 4.
Yes.
Season 7. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
My brain is dead.
You're doing great.
Buy buck scenes in every season. This is why we're doing this.
And seasons, so the buy buck scene in season 7, episode 4, before, the whole thing. I just don't want to talk about it. But anyway, before he and Tommy kiss, they're talking about Eddie, and like
the whole lid. Oh my god! I didn't know what you were referring to. The whole lid.
Oh, that is behind the scenes. Anyway,
I cannot speak its name.
The event.
Event.
The canon event.
Please continue.
Okay, so before the canon event happens, there's a line that Buck says. He's like, "You don't have to tell me how great Eddie is. I've known this since like day 1." And like, so think about it this way. So he's talking to Maddie, praising Eddie in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, he's such a great dad and all this other stuff. Like, you could just, like, that is still a continuing thread, and which could mean nothing. But
So like effusive.
sorry, I finally got to where I wanted to get.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Which could mean nothing, but
It mean everything.
it means everything.
He's so effusive of his praise of like what he thinks of Eddie,
Mhm.
and of thinking that Eddie is just like this really great person
Mm-hmm.
all around, which we just said like he realized now,
Mm-hmm.
like in season 2, in the last in basically this episode, it was solidified, right? So just like, how many times do you think the 118, any members of the 118 or Maddie or whoever, have just heard Buck go on a rant about how great Eddie is? And do you think they're tired of it yet?
I was also gonna ask, like, how many times do you think that he thinks about how great he is?
Every day.
Every day, every hour of every day.
it's literally wake up, go to sleep.
Every day of his damn life.
They're obsessed with each other. It's disgusting.
No. Have Milagro by Gloria Estefan play for Buck's morning routine, which is just like waking up, thinking how wonderful Eddie is. That is his miracle.
Alexa.
Opening up his heart. I don't know. That was stupid, but I had that image in my head, and just like what Eddie feels about Christopher, Buck feels about Eddie. A miracle.
I just made myself emo thinking about like a callback montage, but like after they get together, but it's the 3 of them.
Oh. Yeah.
Anyway,
We need it. I mean, they've already got like half of it already done and showed it in the well, but
Yeah.
Jesus.
There is a montage there. There's a...
I will bring up that well.
Oh, I can't wait. Oh, I know
Every
what...
chance I get.
I've got to live for my son and my best friend.
Yep.
My best friend who's in all of my memories of my son. Oh my goodness.
Talk about a ready-made family. We won't get into that right now.
No. But yeah, oh my god, great parallels. I love that we can continue to parallel shit to
That's
Abby and
romantic
Tommy.
partners.
It's just never gonna end.
Yeah.
I can't wait till we can throw Taylor into the mix. This is good times.
I mean, it's just like once is like an incident or a happenstance. Twice is a coincidence. 3 times is a pattern. Like the amount of times that we're able to connect.
Times is intention.
I
said 3 times is intention. But you said pattern, but like there has to be.
I go off the Teen Wolf quote.
Okay.
From Papa Sheriff Stilinski
Jesus
saying,
Christ.
Once is an incident, twice
yeah, I understand.
Is a coincidence, 3 times a pattern, 4 is cause for a warrant.
I understand the quote I was saying in this context. That 3 seems like intention.
Yes, anyway, so the amount of times that we're able to parallel Abby to Tommy, but then Abby to Tommy to Eddie is a lot of times. And which of these are not like the others, are not the romantic partner, canonically.
It's actually now going to keep me fucking awake at night thinking about how many parallels there are between 704 and 5 and 204.
Well, that kind of goes into the whole idea that season 7
was like a soft reboot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which it very much parallels 4 and it very much parallels 2. So that's also going to be like, we're going to have to keep this in mind for the rest of the season and for season 4.
I hope we get some parallels to 3.
We will.
I need like a well parallel now.
We'll get there.
What else is in 3? Tsunami. Oof.
Something with water.
Yeah.
It'll happen. Because this show loves its water disasters. And for some reason, the water disasters are the best ones. Narratively, at least.
Yeah.
Not like...
Narratively.
Not like... It's great. It's great for the story. Okay.
Well, anyway, that was gay. So...
That was really gay. So much of that was gay.
So
gestures to all of them. That was really gay.
I think this turned out to be the episode that we thought 201 was going to be.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
So this is going to be the 6-hour-long episode.
We should have known.
But there's just so much to get into.
We're going to keep digging like Buck. They're bare hands.
What? I did not catch the end of that.
I said there's a lot to get into, and she said we're gonna keep digging with their bare hands,
like Buck,
like
their
Buck.
bare hands.
Oh my god! Can we please end? It's time to go.
Oh my god! I can't wait until we get to that episode. It's also going to be like 10 hours long. So
remember, don't stick your head in an exhaust pipe.
But if you do,
take a buddy with you.
Thank you for listening to the Buddy System podcast from start to finish.
We literally cannot shut up about 911, so please come talk to us on your favorite social media platform.
We are at Buddy System Pod everywhere. That's BUDDIE System Pod.
Leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts to get a personal shout out in the next episode. The Buddy System is a Nerd Virgin media production featuring music from Divinity.
Can't get enough of the buddies? Subscribe to our Patreon for access to exclusive content and our Discord community.
Catch you next time, and don't forget,
Bring a buddy with you.